Chapter 598. His body was clean, but his whole body was filled with a strong smell of blood. He had the appearance of a banished immortal, but he looked more like a killing god from hell. He strode over, and his footsteps fell heavily on the hearts of the crowd. Thud, thud, thud. He finally stood in the middle of the hall. The entire hall fell silent for a moment, and everyone was stunned by the man's aura. He was so young, but he did not lose in front of so many revered elders. Many people's hearts were pounding. Although the Holy Sun was young, he was already standing at the peak. His aura was very different from before. A few years ago, when he had just ascended to the position of Holy Sun, he was still young and inexperienced. But unknowingly, even they began to feel a little afraid. This was the confidence that came from having great power and power. None of the people who had been prepared to question him opened their mouths at this moment. Rongxiu was the first to break the silence. All of you revered elders are of noble status, and you usually live in seclusion. Why are all of you here today? Everyone came to their senses and looked at each other. That's right. They were here today to find trouble with Rongxiu. How could they be scared the moment they saw him? An elder who was sitting closer to the seat of honor stroked his beard and spoke in a deep voice. Your Highness Holy Sun, I heard that you just annihilated the entire peerless palace? Chapter 605. Nodded indifferently. Yuling knew this said woman. Casually. Jiang Yuji. That's right. Why did she suddenly cause trouble? He admitted it so calmly that the crowd did not know how to respond. It was fine if she wanted to cause trouble. Self-righteous. But why did she have to find trouble with the Holy Sun? It was too much for him to do it today. So presumptuous. Master was up there. The elder's face turned clearly, and his voice was even colder. Yuling felt a chill down his spine. The Peerless Palace is one of the 28 divisions. Fourth Miss Jiang, what are you doing? Hearing the voice, Jiang Yuji looked up, disappointed. And her expression changed slightly. You are too careless. The manager, as soon as he opened his mouth, here today, many people didn't they say that he rarely appeared? That's right. Now that he was here, Your Highness, this matter would be a little troublesome. How do you explain it to the other divisions? Somewhat afraid of Yuling. You've been away for a long time. She immediately restrained herself. Now that you've returned, manager, you've killed everyone from the unparalleled palace. As she spoke, not a single one of them was spared. Pointed to the crystal cabinet. It's inevitable that you'll be criticized. I'm here today now that the impeachment of the various servant of your 100 Herbs building actually said that you don't have it. If you still don't appear, is this how the 100 Herbs building does? I'm afraid it will be difficult to convince the public. Yuling smiled slightly. A commotion broke out in the hall. When I came down just now, I seem to have heard Fourth Miss Jiang say it looked like they were doing it for the sake of the same Rongxiu's reputation and the safety of the troops. That's right. Ever since Jiang Yuji every word and sentence was criticizing Rongxiu, she had been locked up in the residence for several days. And today, she finally begged her mother to let her out, as if he was listening, straight to but also as if he wasn't. Since her brother was there was no change in his expression. She would do it herself to end. Yuling smiled. His reaction naturally caused many people to be dissatisfied. Do you know what Mr. bought here? His Highness the Holy Sun. Are you still afraid that I can't now that this matter has gotten out of hand? She had a small treasury that she had hidden for many years, and the old man who spoke first asked with a stern expression. Previously, she didn't snatch it from Rongxiu's because she was afraid that her father would find out and scold her. But it was extremely cold. But now, as the Holy Sun, I am in charge of the 28 departments. She had even been slapped in the face. However, what else was the impeachment of the various Yuling's expression now changed imperceptibly. Elder Tong Chuan. Of course not. Everyone suddenly fell silent. Is of noble birth. Elder Tong Chuan's expression suddenly froze. It's just that he was so focused on using this opportunity. The first time Miss Chu came, she spent 90,000 that he was the one who accepted the second time. She spent more than $1 million. He paused for a moment. You want to buy the same thing then reluctantly said, which time are you referring to? Previously, Jiang Yuji's expression froze. The Holy Sun was not Yuling thought to himself. That's why the impeachment came to this old man. Is really spoiled by her family. Said indifferently. She wants to come out to back for more than half a month. But she doesn't even know how much confidence I led the troops to kill the unparalleled. If she had asked around, I've been here found out how much Chu Luiwei. However, from beginning to end, she would not have been Elder Tong Chuan, not to mention Jiang Yuji. I almost thought you were going to might not be so extravagant as to throw out a million Elder Tong Chuan's expression became even uglier. Jiang Yuji's words were spread. It would affect his reputation. She vaguely heard that his aggressive aura spent a lot of money in 100 Herbs building. Your Highness, she never expected that she had spent so much. Originally, this old man wanted to wait for you to come back this canopy and have so much money to you. Even if he had mooching because of the unparalleled palace, $1 million this old man didn't have time to take She hesitated for a moment and could only brace herself. I deeply agree. The first time it was that Elder Tong Chuan. She snatched what I wanted. Of virtue. Let's do it according to that time. He would never do such a
90,000
thing.
white
I'll have to
crystal
trouble
coins.
Elder Tong
If she
Chuan to
pooled her
return
money together,
all the
she
impediments
could still
to our
take it
labor.
out.
Elder
Yuling
Tong
glanced
Chuan
at the
could
servant
only
next to him.
agree. Fourth
The
Miss
two of them
Jiang
went
has
back
already
and
made it
forth.
very clear.
Under the calm
Why aren't you
surface,
going to prepare it?
there was a surging
The servant
undercurrent.
looked troubled.
Everyone felt
Manager,
the biting,
the
cold,
stock in the 100
murderous
Herbs building
intent
is
floating
only
in
enough
the
for
air,
Miss Chu
and all of
Luet
them
to pick
shut
up
their
next
mouths.
So I'm afraid
Rongxiu
we
looked
can't sell it
around
to
and
fourth
slowly
Miss
said,
Jiang now.
"That's right.
The manager had
I
said
naturally have
before
my
that the
reasons
things
for
Miss
making a
Chu
move
wanted
on
must
the
be prepared in
unparalleled
advance.
and
When
no
I was
one could
away,
touch them.
the
Now that
unparalleled
Jiang
palace
Yuji wanted
sent
to buy it.
people to assassinate
How could they get it to
me.
her?
Such a
Yuling
crime
nodded
is
in
naturally
understanding.
unforgivable.
Jiang Yuji was
Everyone looked
even
at each other
angrier when she
Some
heard
were
this.
shocked.
Your
Some
store
were
clearly has
suspicious.
it. I want to buy
Elder
it, but you
Tong
don't sell
Chuan
it.
hesitated
What
for
kind
a
of
moment
logic
is
said
this?
Even if it was
Yuling
really someone
explained
from
with
the
a smile.
unparalleled palace
Fourth
who
Miss
tried to
Jiang,
assassinate
you don't
your
know.
highness,
Miss
it
Chu
would be
is
enough
a black
to capture
gold card
that person
VIP
and
of
kill
our
him.
100 Herbs building.
If not,
It would be
according
enough
to the
to deal with
rules,
everyone
we
involved
naturally
in the war.
have to prioritize.
Why did you have to
her.
kill them?
As for
Your
you,
Highness' actions
I can
are
only
too.
apologize
That
to you.
person has no
How about
enmity with
this?
I.
If you
He
have
must
other
have been
things
ordered
that you
by
want, we
someone
can
to
give
do
you a
this.
discount. I don't want
Zhang
other things.
Yufeng couldn't
I only
even
want those
handle
from Chu
such a
Luet.
small matter
The
properly.
smile on Yuling's
Naturally,
face
he should be
faded a little.
punished.
Jiang
Moreover,
Yuji was not
the
a
unparalleled
celestial
palace
physician.
has repeatedly
There was no
offended
genius in this field.
I tolerated them
the entire
time
Jiang
and
mansion.
time again.
What use
I
would
thought
she
they would
have for
admit
these
their
precious
mistakes.
medicinal herbs?
I didn't expect them to
It was
raise
obvious
a tiger
that she was
and almost
here
cause a
to make
disaster.
trouble.
Fourth
Rongxiu's
Miss
gaze
Jiang's
was as
request.
cold as a knife.
I'm sorry, but I
as it
can't
swept
comply
across
with it.
everyone.
Yuling
The
said
unparalleled
lightly,
palace's
if
intention
you really need
to
it,
rebel,
then I'll
is
make a
clear.
list for you later.
Since they have already
You
done
can buy
this,
from other places.
why
in
should I be
Shilling City.
merciful? Jiang
Moreover,
Yuji's
to
voice
say that I
became
is
a little
ruthless.
shrill. He
Manager,
suddenly
you.
laughed with
Are
a
you chasing away a
disdainful
guest?
expression. How can
I've
that
always
be?
been like this.
Our 100 Herbs
So what?
building welcomes
His tone
you
was
very much.
calm and
But we really
indifferent.
can't
But it was
satisfy
so
your request,
reasonable
so
that it made
there seemed to be a
everyone
ball of anger
speechless.
burning in
That's
Jiang
right.
Yuji's chest.
If Rongxiu
nice
was
words.
a merciful person,
Wasn't it because of Chu
how could he
Luet?
be the holy
During this
son?
period of time,
Honorable
every
Tong
time she
Chuan
encountered
opened
something
his mouth,
related to Chu
but did not
Luet,
say anything,
she would be
Rongxiu
especially
continued.
unlucky. I know
It
that
was
there
as
are
if
many
Chu
people who
Luet
don't
was
agree
born
with
to
I.
be her
I
nemesis.
don't care about the
She
small
looked at
matters on a
Yuling
daily
and
basis.
suddenly sneered.
It's just that I don't care
Manager,
about
you.
But if
Do
there
you
are
think that
really
Chu
people who are
Luet has
interested in the
mooching his
position of
backing?
I, or even
I will
that
be
Mu
happy to
Qinghe will
fight with
marry
them.
Chu
The
Luet
unparalleled
and become the
palace
mistress
is a
of the
precedent.
mansion. Everyone
Yuling's
was
heart
shocked.
skipped a beat.
Rongxiu was
Master is
killing
up
the
there
chicken
to
His
warn the
expression
monkey.
immediately
Maybe it was because
became serious.
Rongxiu had
Fourth Miss
repeatedly
Jiang,
backed
please
down
be
a few
careful
years
with your
ago
words.
that they had forgotten what kind of person Rongxiu
Mobile
was.
users, please
Until
browse
now,
for a better
they were
reading
suddenly
experience
awakened.
from Love Network.
How could someone who could take the Holy Son's position be a pushover?
Chapter
Did he mean that
606.
from now on,
Be careful
you would
with
have
my
to adopt
words.
a tough attitude?
Didn't these words
and
come
methods?
from your 100 Herbs
Many
building?
people recalled the
Jiang
bloody
Yuji
scene a
did
few
not
years
notice
ago
that Yuling's
and looked at
expression was
Honorable
off.
Elder.
Instead,
Tong
she
Chuan
thought that she had
anxiously.
hit the nail on the
Honorable
head.
Elder
I remember
Tong
the first
Chuan
time she
took
came
a
to 100
deep
Herbs
breath
building and
She
said,
brought Duan
Your
Zi
Highness
with
is
her.
right. He is
But there are
mooching
many
his
people in the
confidant.
division.
At that time,
If you continue to
didn't
use
you also
such an
refuse
iron
to sell
fist
the
to deal with
Kitagawa
them,
quarrel
it
to
will
me
definitely
because of
cause
Duan
them to
Ziyu?
resent you.
After
Before
that,
he could
there was a
finish,
saying that
a
Chu
burst of
Yu's
laughter
backer
came from
was
outside
Mu
the hall.
Qinghe. Huh. Later,
This is a
there was a
world
rumor
where
that she had a
strength
close
is
relationship with
respected.
Jian Fengqi.
What's wrong with your
Chu
Highness
Luet
doing
had
this?
only been in
Mobile
Shilin
users,
for less than a month.
please browse
but
for
she had
a
already
better
built a
reading
relationship
experience
with the
from
two
Love
of them.
Network.
She was really capable.
Yuling
Chapter
said
599. Fourth
His
young
voice
mistress
was low
Jiang.
and deep,
If I remember
full
correctly,
of energy.
Miss Chu
It seemed to have
clearly
come from
bid
far
more
away,
than you that day,
but was like
so
thunder,
She took the
exploding
Kitagawa
in
in
everyone's ears.
Jiang Yuji's expression
Hearing his voice
instantly became
respected
much
Elder
uglier.
Tong,
but she still
Chuan's
forced
face
herself
changed.
to say, Many people in,
short,
the hall had
I'm
their
here today to tell
expressions
you
stiffened.
that Chu
Like a
Luet has
bolt of
nothing to
lightning.
do with
A figure
Mu Qinghe.
broke through the void.
She has no
and
backer
arrived.
in Shilling
In
City
the blink
at
of an
all.
eye,
She is just
he
a
appeared
lowly
at the
woman
entrance
from
of the hall.
outside.
It was a
heaven's
slightly
canopy.
plump old
Yuling
man.
heaved a
His
sigh
round
of
face
relief
had a
when he
kind
heard the
smile,
first half
and his
of the
eyes were
sentence.
curved.
But when he heard the
slits.
second half,
he strode in.
all the
his
hair on his
footsteps
body
light,
stood
and
on
his
end.
landing
meeting was
He
silent.
took a step forward,
However,
and stared at
when they
Jiang
saw this
Yuji.
person enter,
His voice was cold
everyone in
and
the hall
harsh.
became restless.
Fourth young mistress
Rongshou
Jiang,
looked back.
please
his
take back
lips
your
curling.
words.
36
Jiang Yuji
respected
sneered
elderman
disapprovingly.
Why are you here?
Why?
General
I heard that
Manager,
your Highness
don't
has
believe
finally
me?
cleaned
Why don't
up
we
those
invite
bastards
Vice Admiral
from the
Mu
Unparalleled
over
Palace
and ask him personally?
This old man is
Yuling
very
secretly
happy,
cursed
so I'm here to
Jiang
celebrate.
Yuji for being
36
brainless.
respected
It was
elder
fine
men,
if she wanted to
said
die,
with a smile,
but she didn't want to drag
not
him
hiding
down.
the joy and
We already
excitement
knew
on
that
his
Miss
face.
Chu has
He had
nothing
long
to do
found
with
the
the Mu
unparalleled
clan
palace
and Vice
an
Admiral
eyesore.
But
Rongshou
now
had
she
held
is an
back for
honored
so
guest
long,
of Hunter
and
Herd's
finally
building.
made his move.
So she can't
and
be
it was a
humiliated
one-hit
like
kill.
this.
He was very
If
happy.
fourth young Mistress
Your Highness,
Jiang can
I
bear
heard
the
that you didn't
consequences
bring
of
many
offending
people
Hunter
this
Herd's
time.
building, and you
Please
took care
continue.
of all the people from
Jiang
the
Yuji was
unparalleled
stunned for a
palace in
moment
day.
before she
It
realized
seems that your
what he
Highness
meant.
has improved
Is he saying
a lot recently.
He knew that Chu Lu
Everyone was
doesn't
even
have
more
any backing.
silent. But he's
Why was
protecting
36
her
respected
because she spent a
eldermings
lot of money
focus
here.
always different from
Looking at
everyone
Yuling's
else.
cold expression,
However,
she
was
couldn't
very
help
strong.
but shudder at her
Among
heart.
all the
She
respected
was actually a little
elders,
afraid.
he was one
She
of
had
the most
only spoken
senior.
the truth. Normal people
Why did Yuling
could
have
only
such a
lower their
big
heads in
reaction?
front of him.
From the looks of
When
it,
they faced
he actually wanted to make a move
they might
on
be
her,
able to use their
although she
status
was used
and
to being
seniority
arrogant
to
and
put on
domineering.
airs. She was
However,
still too immature
when facing
compared to people like
36
Yuling.
respected eldermen,
She couldn't show off at all.
They definitely did
I-
not have
I'm
the
just here to
guts.
tell you.
Even
She-
respected elder
she's
Tong
not that
Chuan
powerful.
tried his best
Why
to
do you have to
avoid
treat her like
provoking
this?
him. Rong Xiao
Jiang
smiled
Yuji was
even.
both furious
Thank you for your
and
praise.
confused.
36
In terms of
respected
status, she was
eldermen.
much higher
During
than
this period
Chu
of time.
Luiwei.
I have
So what if Chu
indeed
Luiwei
gained
had Mu
quite a lot.
Qinghe as his
36
backer?
respected
Mu Qinghe was her
eldermen
brother's
rubbed his chin
subordinate
and chuckled.
That's right.
He
But
had even
now,
found a wife.
Yuling was willing
What else
to
was there to
offend her
say
for Chu Luiwei.
He turned his head to
Are you
look
kidding
at
me?
Elder
Yuling was
Xian
also about to go
Tongchuan.
crazy.
His face
He
was
didn't
still
check the
smiling,
almanac when he went
but
out
his words
today.
were not as
He
polite.
actually provoked
Tong
such an
Chuan.
idiot.
Back then,
Chu
our
Luiwei
ancestors
didn't have
single-handedly
any backers in
swept
West Hill,
through 28
but he did
tribes,
tens of
and
thousands of
millions
miles
of
away.
people submitted
And
to
more
him.
importantly,
What they relied
that
on was
top-notch
strength.
backer was
Why are
now
you so
standing
against it when it
upstairs.
comes to his highness?
Master must have seen
the
all
Holy
of this.
Sun.
At
The
the
people
thought
of the
this,
peerless palace
Yuling
had
even had the
repeatedly
urge to
disobeyed
kill
Jiang
superiors.
Yuji. He took
Now,
a deep breath.
they had
and
even
said in a
attempted
deep
to
voice,
assassinate
how 100
the
Herbs
Holy
building
Sun.
does business.
They should have been
is not
executed
for
long
fourth Miss
ago.
Jiang to
Only
tell
in
us
this
what to
way
do.
would he
Men,
be able to
please
suppress
escort
the
forth
other
Miss
people
Jiang out.
who had their own
Jiang Yuji
thoughts.
pointed at herself.
In my opinion,
in disbelief.
Your Highness's actions
You're chasing
are
me
not
out?
wrong at all.
Yuling
On the
curled his
contrary,
lips
it is
without a
extremely
smile.
good.
It doesn't matter what
Since
you
he
say
was the
outside,
Holy Sun.
but in the territory
He should have
of 100
means
Herbs
and
building,
dignity
no
of
one
a
is
Holy
allowed
Sun.
to humiliate a black
In the
gold
past,
card VIP.
Rong Xiao
Fourth
had
Miss Jiang,
many misgivings,
sorry for the offense,
which was why he chose
as
to
he
give
spoke,
in time and time
he
again.
looked coldly
But
at
now,
the
what was there to
servants
give into?
and guards at the side.
Respected Elder
What are you
Tong
waiting
Chuan
for?
opened
As
his
soon as the
mouth
order was
and was
given,
about to say
everyone
something
rushed
when he was
over.
interrupted
The
by
manager
36
today
respected
was so
eldermen.
scary.
If you're
He was even
dissatisfied with
scarier
his
than
Highness
when
the
he taught
Holy
those
Sun's
talkative
actions.
women a lesson.
Aren't you
that day.
implying that our
Everyone was
ancestor
anxious
is cruel
and hurriedly
cold-blooded?
carried Jiang Yuji
Elder
out.
Tong Chuan
Jiang
suddenly
Yuji
stood
was
up.
so
This old man
angry
didn't
that her
mean
lungs
that.
were about to explode.
36 respected
Yuling,
Elder Ming.
How dare you
Don't
treat me
randomly
like this?
accuse me.
My brother will
Did this
never
old
let
man
you off.
accuse you?
Yuling
Or
walked
did
to
you
the door
accuse me?
and looked down
Everyone
at
is
Jiang
very
Yuji
clear about
with a
it.
smile.
What are you shouting
Fourth
for?
Miss Jiang.
36
Our rules have
respected
always been
Elder
like this,
Ming
said
even if
lazily.
eldest young Master
Respected
Jiang is
Elder
here,
Tong
it's the
Chuan's
same.
face
And
flushed red.
Eldest
He was
young
fine if
Master
this whole
Jiang
thing didn't
has been
come out
very
normally,
low-key
but the
recently.
moment he came
If he
out,
knows about
he would
today's
cause a
matter,
ruckus. Who knows
relying
who
on
will find
his
trouble
status
with.
to do
Jiang
whatever
Yuji's
he
heart
wanted.
sank, and there was
She
nothing
suddenly
he could do
panicked.
about it. Yes,
36
she had almost
respected
forgotten
Elder
that her
Ming's
brother had
cold
warned her
gaze
not to
swept
cause
across
any
the
more
crowd.
trouble.
The
He still
28
didn't know
tribes are
that she had
all
secretly
revered
by
by
the
now.
Holy Sun.
If today's
Since
news
the Holy
reached his
Sun is
ears,
cleaning up the
he would
sect,
definitely
how could
not
it be
let
their
her
turn to
off
complain?
easily.
And all
Thinking
of you,
of this,
all of you have
she became
status.
afraid.
Instead of
Yuling
thinking about
continued.
how to solve
All
this
right.
problem, Fourth
You
Miss
came to
Jiang,
question
you don't have to
the
come
Holy
anymore.
Sun.
Our 100
Do you
Herbs
still have any
building will
rules?
no longer
He looked
do business
amiable,
with you from now
but when he
on.
said those
For the
words,
sake of eldest
it was like a
young
slap
Master
to
Jiang,
everyone's face.
we won't implicate your
Rong
family.
Xiao said warmly.
However,
I hope that
36
Fourth Miss
respected
Jiang will
Elder
be
Ming.
more careful
All
with
of you
your
are
words and
also
actions in
thinking
the
for the
future.
sake of
Otherwise,
and the 28
you won't
tribes.
know when you cause trouble
I think
for
that this
yourself.
kind of thing will not happen.
With that, he turned
Isn't that
around
right, everyone?
and walked into the building.
After a short
leaving
moment of
Jiang
silence,
Yuji,
a respected
standing
elder,
there in a
finally
daze.
stood up and
What did he mean
bowed
by that just
deeply
now?
to Rong
How dare he
Xiao
treat me
and
like
36
this?
respected
Because
elder
of
Ming.
anger,
Your Highness,
Jiang Yuji's
you don't have
face
to
became
explain
a little
for us.
distorted.
36
She wanted to rush
respected
immediately,
Elder Ming,
but
is
Yuling's
right.
words
We have
just now
indeed
kept
not
echoing
considered
in
this
her
matter
mind.
thoroughly.
She stood there
Please
for a
forgive
long
us,
time
Your
until the
Highness.
people around her
Once
began
someone
to
took
point
the
at her.
lead, the rest
Finally,
of the people
she
naturally
fled in a
followed
sorry
suit.
state.
Very quickly, half of the people
Yuling
in the hall
returned
had
to the third
expressed their
floor
attitudes
and saw Rong
and left
Xiao
one
sitting
after
quietly
another.
in the room.
The originally
His face was
solemn
calm
and
no
dignified
emotions
battle
could be seen.
array, Yuling was
Gradually
about to
became
speak when he
scattered
suddenly
and
heard him
disorderly.
say,
Respected
"It seems
Elder
that she's
Tong
been having a
Chuan
lot of
was
fun
so
in West
angry
Hill
that
during
his
this
face
period."
turned pale.
Yuling
but he
suddenly
didn't
shuddered.
dare to say anything.
Master,
36
actually, these are all
respected Elder
rumors.
Ming's status
You
was
also know
higher
that
than his,
3 people made
and
a
he
tiger.
never acted according
Miss
to
Lu
common
Yu
sense.
is actually
He was extremely
Xiu
difficult to
raised
deal
his
with.
eyes.
If
and
he
looked at
wasn't
him
forced
calmly.
into a corner,
Remember,
he wouldn't have gone
except in
against
front
it.
of her.
His
Call her
anger
madam
went back
at
and
all
forth
times.
between his chest
Mobile
and
users,
abdomen,
please
making him
browse and read.
feel very
A better reading
uncomfortable.
experience comes
In the
from
end,
Love Network.
Seeing that this condemnation couldn't continue, he also stood up and planned
Chapter
to leave.
6.
Just as he was about to step out of the
was
door,
shocked. In
Rong
an
Shio's
instant,
voice came
his
from
face,
behind him, which had
neither
always
too
been
fast
expressionless,
nor too slow,
had a variety of
Respected Elder
expressions.
Tong Chuan.
Master,
Please don't forget
Rong
to
Shio
send those
asked
reports
faintly.
back.
Why?
Also,
Don't you
since
understand?
I've already returned,
Yu Ling felt
then
a
we
chill
don't need to trouble
all over
respected
his body.
Elder
He quickly
Tong
controlled his
Chuan to
expression
review the
and
reports of
lowered
the
his
28
head.
divisions.
I understand. Respected elder Tong
standing next to
back
him,
was facing
looked at him
Rong Shio,
sympathetically.
his face
How
red
pitiful.
and white.
He couldn't
In
see
the
his
end,
master all
he could
year
only
round.
stiffly agree.
It was
and
indeed
quickly
difficult
leave.
for him to
in the
face
entire
such
hall.
a big matter.
Only Rong
as soon
Shio
as he saw
and
his
36
master.
respected
Yuling
elder
was
Ming
sweating
were
all
left.
over.
Today,
I
this
see,
old man
I see.
came at the right time.
When he received the news
36
before,
respected
he just felt
elder
that his
Ming
master
chuckled.
treated
Those little
Chu
brats
Luiyue
are
differently,
also thanks
but he
to this
didn't
old
expect
man's
to be to
teachings.
such an
Their
extent.
cooperation
When he
is
thought
also
of
how
how bad,
Jiang Yuji
right?
actually said
Rong
those
Shio
words in
smiled.
front of his master.
Thank you for
just
coming
now.
out personally
This fourth
today.
Miss Jiang
Some words
would
were not
probably be in
suitable
trouble
for
for
him
him
to
to
say.
say.
But
I
for
heard that when she
36
came here
respected
before,
elder
she was
Ming to
accompanied
say
by
it.
someone.
It was twice
Rong
the result
Shio
with
suddenly
half the
asked.
effort.
At the
Yuling
very
subconsciously
least, from today
said,
onwards,
"You mean
no one would
Duanzi you?"
dare to make an
Rong
issue
Shio's
out of
hand
him
tapped on the
being
table
vicious
twice.
and merciless.
Yuling's heart turned cold.
No matter how many
Yan
people
Qing
died
desperately
in the
winked at him.
unparalleled palace,
After a while,
no one would
Yuling
speak
reacted.
up for them.
You
He had
mean
gained the upper
Chang
hand this
Wanzhou.
time, and
Rong
many
Shio's
things would be
expression
much
didn't
more
change,
convenient in
but
the
the
future.
aura on his body
36
turned cold.
respected elder
Yuling
Ming
thought to
waved his
himself
hand
that he was
indifferently.
indeed talking about
This
it.
old man has
Seeing that
already
his
come out of
master
seclusion
seemed to
have
have
become
become
dangerous
for so long.
Yuling
This time
couldn't
won't make
care
a difference.
less.
He
If you
hurriedly
really
told
wanna
him
thank me,
everything he knew.
why don't you
about
bring your
Chang
little
Wanzhou.
princess back
As he
as
spoke,
soon as possible?
he found that the
and let this
expression
old
on his
man
master's
take a look at
face
her became more
Rong
indifferent.
Shio's sword-like
He felt a little
eyebrows
nervous
raised slightly.
and hurriedly added.
36
I think
respected
Lu,
elder Ming
Madam
was
treats
really
Chang
persistent about
Wanzhou
this
like a
matter.
child.
She still
Rong
has very
Shio
important
suddenly
things to do.
smiled.
So
But his
she
thin
probably
lips
won't be able to
curved
come
up as he
during this
said
period
with
of
deep
time.
meaning.
Just as
You're
Rong
right.
Shio finished
So,
speaking,
most
he saw
of the medicinal
Yan Qing
materials
rushing in
she
from
bought
outside.
from here.
Your
before
Highness,
were for Chang
he had been
Wanzhou.
waiting outside
Yuling
the
was
entire
tired.
time.
If he denied
When he
it,
saw that all
he
the
would be
respected
lying to
elders
his
had come out,
master.
he thought that
If
the
he
matter
admitted
here
it,
had already
he would be
ended.
putting his neck
So he
under the
immediately
knife.
came over.
It was not
Yan
easy
Qing
to
presented a
choose
letter
either
with
path.
both hands.
This,
Miss Luiyue
I'm not
said
very
that you must
sure.
open it personally.
After all,
Madam
mobile users
is a celestial
please browse
physician.
and read.
It's normal
A
for
better
her
reading
to need
experience
medicinal
comes from
materials.
Love Network.
Maybe she wants to refine medicine for herself.
Chapter 600.
Rong Shio's
36
smile
respected
deepened.
elder
Yuling
Ming's
immediately
eyes
shut his
lit
mouth.
up.
It's a
Did she
letter
say
from your
when she
little
would come
princess.
back for medicinal
Open it and take a
materials?
look. Yuling.
Rong Shio's lips
Tomorrow.
curled up slightly.
Rong
as
Shio
he took
leaned
the
against
letter.
the chair.
His
and
slender
gently
fingers
closed his
brushed
eyes.
past the seal
Tomorrow
of the
then.
letter. But he
Why
suddenly
wait
paused.
until tomorrow?
Rong Shio
Yuling
looked up
was
and
curious
glanced
in his
at
heart,
36
but he didn't dare
respected
to
elder
ask.
Ming.
Do you
So,
plan to take a look at
he
this
could only
letter
respond
too?
respectfully.
Yes.
36 respected
On the
elder
other
Ming
side,
instinctively
after
opened
Jiang
his
Yuji
mouth.
was chased
Then,
out of the 100 Herbs
he noticed
building,
that it seemed
she was filled with
inappropriate
anger
and
quickly
responded.
coughed. She walked
It's
aimlessly
fine.
on the street.
Since it's a letter
As
for
he
you,
walked,
it's
he kept
naturally
thinking about the
inappropriate
things
for
that
me
had
to
happened
read
in
it.
this world.
Take a look.
No matter how she
As he
thought about
spoke,
it was
even
all
took a
because
step
of
back.
Chu Luiyue
Rong
that she
Shio
had
then
to
opened it.
suffer all
There was
these
only a short
grievances
line
again
of
and
words on the
again.
letter.
Unfolding Xiang Exn. Her brother's
moonshine
warnings for thousands
kept
of miles
echoing in her mind. Signed you.
She bit her
Rong
lip.
Shio held the letter.
Her eyes were red
and looked at that
It was
sentence.
fine if others didn't
He
help
kept it in
her,
his heart,
but even
as
her
his
brother hit
fingertips
her
curled up
for Chu
slightly.
Luiyue. Although it was
Wasn't it
only
because
one she hit the nail on the
it was
head.
enough for him.
The third princess didn't
36
know,
respected
but she
elder
knew
Ming
very well.
stood at the side
After waiting
and
for that
watched
person to die,
as Rong
another
Shio
Chu Luiyue
looked like a
popped up.
completely
She was like a
different
ghost
person after he
as she
opened the letter.
walked.
The
Jiang
murderous
Yuji
aura
suddenly
on his
stopped.
body
She gritted her
dissipated
teeth,
completely.
turned around,
His eyebrows
and walked
relaxed
towards
as if
the
the
ice
ice
and
and
snow.
her brother
in early
refused to
spring
help,
had melted.
and 100
This
Herbs
Rong
building
Shio was
protected
indeed
Chu
something
Luiyue
that had
in all
never
kinds of
happened
ways.
before.
Now,
36
there was only
respected
one
elder
person
Ming
who could
sighed in
teach
his
Chu
heart
Luiyue
and couldn't
a
help
lesson.
but be
The
even
third
more
princess,
curious.
Shang
What kind of
Wan.
woman could make
Shang
him fall
Wan
in love
hated
with
Shang
so
Wan.
much? Now
He
that
wanted
she
to take
saw
a look at the
Chu
letter,
Luiyue,
but
who
after
was similar
thinking
to
about
her,
it,
it
he
would be
gave up.
strange if
It
Shang
was
Wan
meaningless
like
for an
Chu
old
Luiyue.
man like him
Now
to
that the
read a
third
love
princess
letter
was
between a
second
young couple.
only to one
However,
person, seeing that
even her
Rong
brother had to
Shio
listen
was
to
in
her.
such a good mood,
If Shang Wan
he could make a
punished
request.
Chu Luiyue, that
No one could say
Your
anything.
Highness,
The more
the
she
little
thought
princess
about it,
has
the more she
personally
felt
written
that
a
this
letter to
method
you.
was
Do
feasible.
you really not plan to visit
She
her?
quickened her steps.
It's better for young people
However,
to meet more.
She had just walked
Rong
a short
Shio
distance
read
when
the letter to masked man suddenly
before
appeared
carefully
in front of
keeping
her.
it.
Alarm
Then,
bells
he
went
looked at
off in her
36
heart.
respected
He didn't come with good
eldermen
intentions.
and asked,
She
"Do you wanna
quickly
go
looked
together?"
around.
36
realized that she had
respected
unknowingly
eldermen
walked
was embarrassed
into a
for a
remote
moment
alley.
after his thoughts
This
were
masked
exposed,
man just
but he
happened
quickly
to block her
nodded.
way here.
That's right.
She had sneaked
Since
out
I have
today
nothing to do
and
recently,
didn't dare to
why
bring
don't I
any
go and
guards.
take a look?
Now,
Rongshou
she was
thought
alone.
for a moment
Who
and
are you?
smiled.
What do you
She
want?
should be at her busiest
Jiang
right
Yuji
now.
asked
I'm
fiercely.
afraid it's not a good time
She
to
could
go
feel
now.
that the masked
Of
man
course,
was very
he missed her very
powerful.
much.
If he wanted to
But
do
with his current
anything to
identity,
her,
she
she was
wouldn't
really
even
a little
have the
troublesome
chance to
for him
escape.
to go over
The masked
legitimately.
man didn't
A
say
trace of
anything.
disappointment
He just walked toward her.
flashed across
Jiang
36
Yuji was afraid
respected
and
elderman's
unconsciously
face.
retreated.
After pausing for a
Don't
moment,
come over.
he asked
Let me tell you,
unwillingly,
I'm the fourth
"You're
young
really not
miss of the
going?"
Jiang residence.
Rongshou had actually
The
planned
masked
to wait
man
for Chu
said in a
Luiyue to
hoarse
settle
voice,
down in West.
"You're the one I'm
before
looking
going
for."
there. After
However,
saying that,
just as
his
he was
figure
about to
instantly
nod,
disappeared
he saw
from
Yin
spot.
Qing's hesitant
Jiang
expression.
Yuji cried out in
Your
surprise.
Highness, there's something
In
that
the
I
next
don't
moment,
know if I should
the
say.
masked man appeared in front of her,
narrowed his eyes.
She subconsciously
Something to do
gathered
with
the
the West
force
Hill.
in her body.
Yin Qing nodded.
And threw a punch.
Just say it.
The masked
Rong
man
Shou
raised
said
his
calmly.
hand, and
The current
easily
shilling
blocked
actually
her
referred
fist.
to Chu Lu.
Jiang Yuji's
Since it was
expression
news
changed.
about her.
However,
He
the
naturally
masked
had to
man
listen.
had already
Yin
grabbed
Qing
her wrist
hesitated for a
tightly.
moment before
He
saying,
took a step forward
recently,
and viciously
a
bent
strange
it.
young man suddenly appeared
Jiang
by Miss
Yuji
Lu
cried
Yu's
out in
side.
pain, and her
Rong
body
Shou paused.
immediately
Immediately
went limp
after,
on the ground.
Yin
The
Qing
masked
told
man
Rong Shou
continued to
about what
attack,
she saw that day,
beating Jiang
with
Yuji
every
until
sentence.
she couldn't
Rong
retaliate
Shou's expression
and could
turned
only
a little
take
colder.
It was as if the
Later
masked
on,
man
I went to ask
deliberately
around.
chose
It was
the
said
most
that Miss Lu
painful
Yu met
part of her
him
body
at the
to hit.
Wanzhong competition.
She was in so much pain
It seemed
that her face
turned pale.
Yin Qing's
In the
voice
end,
gradually
she
became
couldn't even make a
softer.
sound of pain.
Seemed what?
After some time,
Rong Shou asked
she
calmly.
finally rolled her eyes.
Yin
and
Qing
fainted.
shuddered.
The
But he
masked
still
man
opened his
stopped
mouth to speak
and looked at her
honestly.
condescendingly. They seemed to hit
So
it off
weak,
very well.
with such little
Miss
strength.
Lu Yu seemed
She
to
actually
use that young
dared
man
to be
as a
so
follower.
arrogant in Shilling
Follower?
City.
She had always done things cleanly.
It was obvious that
Basically,
she had been spoiled
she could
by her
handle
family.
everything by herself.
The masked man looked at the
Why would she need a
bruised
follower
and swollen
all of a sudden?
Jiang Yuji.
Moreover,
with satisfaction,
she always
and
seemed
nodded
to be
in
polite
satisfaction.
and modest.
Finally,
But in fact,
there was someone like
there were
him.
very few people.
Although
who
he was
caught
the
her
one
eye.
who hit her,
That young man,
looking at her
so
like
close
this
to her,
made him feel
it was obvious that he
inexplicably
had gained her
refreshed.
trust.
I'll let
Rong
you live
Shou's
today.
face was
The
expressionless.
masked man chuckled.
His fingers
This time,
gently rubbed.
she had
the
really
letter
offended
twice.
someone she shouldn't
Go
have.
and inform you.
It would be fine if
the
to
master
follow.
wanted to give her a
I
quick
just
death,
but
but
Yin
she
Qing
turned
hurriedly
around and
said,
left.
Yes.
Jiang Yuji,
When does your highness
who was
plan
lying
to set off?
unconscious on the
Before he
ground,
could finish,
slowly
Rong
opened her
Shou
eyes.
glanced at him lightly.
However, I'll
In the
give you an
next
hour
moment,
to pack.
The masked
Yin
man who had
Qing's
left
heart
appeared
skipped a
again.
beat.
Jiang
I'll go right
Yuji
away.
was so
With
scared
that,
that her heart
Yin
almost
Qing quickly
jumped
got
out of
up
her
and
chest.
left. The masked
Seeing
man
his figure
suddenly
disappear in
laughed.
front of him.
You can watch more if
36
you want.
respected
After
Elder
all,
Ming chuckled
today
and
is
teased.
just the beginning.
Your Highness,
Mobile users,
didn't you just say
please
that the
browse
young
for a
princess
better reading
consort is very
experience
busy
from Love Network,
recently, and that you would visit her later?
Rong Shou's long eyelashes
Chapter
fluttered.
608.
It's precisely
Jiang
because she's
Yuji,
busy that
who
I
was
will
caught
go
red-handed
and help her
was
personally.
filled with panic
It'll
and
save me
fear.
the trouble of
In an
finding
instant,
a follower.
She felt that her
36
little thoughts had been
respected Elder
seen
Ming rubbed his
through by the
hands
other party.
excitedly.
She
I'll
opened
go
her mouth
too.
to speak,
Rong
but
Shou
she
choked
choked
on
on
the
the
blood in her mouth.
Respected Elder,
and coughed
now that the
violently.
unparalleled
The masked
palace's
man
problem
sneered.
has just been solved,
With Jiang
there are
Yuji's
still
little
many
combat
follow-up
power,
matters that
it was
need
not
someone to
easy
watch
for her to
over.
live so
There shouldn't be
arrogantly
anyone more
until now.
suitable than you.
He whistled
Right?
and quickly
36
disappeared.
respected
This
Elder
time,
Ming's
Jiang
face
Yuji
instantly
waited for a
fell.
long time with
What
her
else could there
heart
be to do?
hanging in the air.
After today's incident,
Only when she was sure that the
Tong
masked
Chuan and
man
the rest
would
not
not stay
return
put for a long
she stand
time.
up shakily.
This kid, the
just doesn't want
injuries
you
on
to
her
go,
body
right?
and
He
the fear
coughed.
in her heart.
I
made her
promised that
legs
I'll
go
only
weak.
go and take a
She'd
look at the
only
young
barely
princess
stand
consort.
by leaning.
I
against
definitely
the wall.
won't interfere.
She was filled
Rong
with
Shou
hatred and
seemed
fear.
to have thought of something.
Just now,
His
the
eyes
masked man
flickered,
said that this
and he
was
finally
just the
nodded.
beginning.
All right.
What do you mean? She stood
At
there
that
for a long
moment,
time.
Chu Lu
After
and
her
naturally
mood
didn't know
gradually
that
calmed
Rong
down.
Shou,
She
who
was
finally
thousands of
regained
miles
some
away,
rationality.
was planning to
Now that
rush
she was
over.
covered in
Right
injuries
now,
and her face
all her
and
energy
body
was
were
placed
covered
on
in
the
blood,
cloud sky.
she definitely could not
Night
enter
fell,
the palace,
and the galaxy
she
was
subconsciously
boundless.
wanted to go home.
The power
But
between
now that she
heaven
was like
and
this,
earth, if her brother
constantly
found
gathered
out,
on the
he would
Star
probably reprimand her again.
Chu Lu
Jiang
was on
Yuji
it,
thought about it,
polishing the
and squatted
long
down.
sword in her hand.
She stayed in this
Once,
secluded alley
once again,
until the sky
mobile
darkened.
users,
Then,
please browse
she began
and
to
read.
walk home.
A better reading experience
residence.
comes from Love Network.
In the room, Jiang Yuqing sat cross-legged on the bed.
Chapter 6.
His shoulders were slightly
The rough,
drooped,
low,
and his hands
and
were on
hoarse
his
sound
knees
of
with
friction
his palms
sounded
facing up.
especially
A
cold.
fist-sized blood ball was floating in front of him.
Slowly.
His eyes
And
were
Chu
fixed
Lu
on the
Wen
ball
maintained
of
his
blood
posture
as he
from start to
circulated the
finish,
origin power
as though she
around
did
his
not
body.
know fatigue.
It transformed
But in
into
reality,
thin
her
threads
arm
that
was
extended
already
toward the ball of
extremely
blood.
sore.
The blood
And it did
ball
not
shook,
feel like it was
and the
hers
liquid
anymore.
inside began
Now,
to slowly flow.
she was only
along the
relying
thin
on her
lines
willpower
into Jiang
to
Yuqing's
force
body.
herself to continue.
The aura on his
Only when
body
she really
began
cannot
to
take
grow
it any
stronger
longer would she
rapidly
stop and rest for
At the
a
same
while.
time,
But
his
most of the
skin
time,
also
She was still
rapidly
polishing
turned
this
red.
cloud sky.
There seemed to be
copper
something
sword.
surging
A night's
under
time
his
passed
skin,
quietly,
which looked
the
very
next morning,
strange.
when the
His
morning
face
light
also
shone
became
on
ferocious,
ferocious,
as
she
if he was
finally put
enduring
down the
great
sword in her
pain.
hand.
After
and
an
stood on the
unknown
star
period of
stone
time,
to stretch her
the
body.
liquid in the blood ball
Crackling sounds
finally
could be
entered
heard.
Jiang
Chu
Yuqing's
Liwei
body.
felt
He suddenly
as though she had
raised
come
his
back
head.
to life.
Something
After
quickly
calming down for a
surged
while,
down from
she
the
picked
skin
up the
on
cloud
his neck
sky copper
and
sword again,
finally disappeared
wanting to
into
see
his
the results
clothes.
of the night's polishing.
Ugh!
Then
A strange
the
and
expectant
painful
expression
groan
came
on
from
her
his
face
throat.
froze.
After a while,
because this
the
cloud
blood
sky
on his
copper
face
sword
had
had
only
only
been
been
polished,
and he
off
slowly
the thin
opened his
layer.
eyes.
Compared
And
to
at
his
this time,
thick
the
and
aura on
broad
his body
had
it
actually
was simply
returned to the
negligible.
middle of the
If it were
eighth
not
level.
for the fact that the
He lowered his
surface was
head
obviously
and looked at
much
his hands.
smoother,
He could
she would
feel the
almost
aura
suspect
in
that
his
this
body
sword
becoming
had not
stronger
undergone
again. without a
any
long
changes
sigh.
at all.
She
Finally
widened her
over.
eyes in disbelief.
This process was
looked
very
at it over
painful,
and over again.
and it also
After a
damaged
while,
his body to
she
a certain
finally
extent.
accepted this
However,
fact with difficulty.
in order to prevent
She had
Yuchi
spent the
Song from
entire
discovering
night
his
polishing
abnormality,
without
he
any
could only
sleep,
do this,
and did not
However,
allow
this
this
thing
cloud
could only
sky
last
copper
for a
sword
limited
to have
amount of time.
any substantial progress.
Last,
He had
what's
to
the
get
hurry?
rid of the Yuchi
Do you think it's so
Song as
easy
soon
to
as
forge a
possible.
good sword?
After all,
Taizu seemed to
he
have
didn't want to
already
delay
expected
his true
Shu
cultivation
Liyue's reaction
and
and
spoke
spoke
slowly.
At the
Shu
sect meeting,
Liyue
perhaps he
exhaled.
would be able to.
I thought.
He stood
Now,
up and walked out.
She
the door.
finally understood
The sky
what
had
Taizu
already
said before.
darkened,
And
this
the moon
process
hung
required
high
a
in the
large
sky.
amount of
Sun
energy
Chi was
and
guarding the
mental
door.
strength.
Young
This
master,
was much more difficult
Jiang
than
Yuqing
she had
asked.
expected.
How long has
Don't
it been?
worry. Sun
Yesterday
Chi
was
said,
only the first day.
2 days and
you're
2
not
nights.
very familiar
Did
with
anyone
it.
come by during
After
this
more
period?
times,
You said
will
earlier
know how
that
to
you wanted to
use your
cultivate,
strength,
so
and it will
no one
naturally
came to
be much
disturb you
faster.
these 2 days.
Taizu
As
consoled
Sun
her.
Chi spoke,
Thank you.
He glanced
Taizu,
at him and said,
for your guidance.
Everything is
Shu
normal.
Liyue kept
Everything
the cloud
else
sky
is
copper
normal.
sword and the star
Jiang
stone,
Yuqing heaved a
planning
sigh
to come
of
again
relief.
at night.
As
She
long
was
as
already
Shangwan
prepared
won
to fight
and Yuchi
a
Song
long
don't
battle.
fight. No matter
There's
what,
basically
she
nothing
must
to worry
forge
about.
this sword. His expression
Shu
changed
Liyue
slightly.
returned to Mount
and he
Qingyuan
suddenly remembered
and
that he
tidied
had
up a little.
locked Jiang
Then,
Yuji up for a
as
few
usual,
days. He went to the
Fourth
Earth Garden
Missy
to
didn't
look
come
after
either
it for a while.
No.
Without
Xiao
the influence
Tingan
of the
came
mess
every day,
gravel,
but
these
Fourth
herbs
Missy
grew
didn't
very
come out to
smoothly.
see him.
Every
However,
time,
she
he
found
would
that her
leave
senior brothers
after
and
sitting for a
sisters
while.
seemed to have
Jiang
become very
Yuqing
busy.
thought to
In the
himself
past,
that it was indeed
they would
so.
often come to the herb
Previously,
garden to take a
I
look.
sent the Xiao family
However,
a
today,
message saying
Shu
that the
Liyue
two
stayed
families'
alone in
marriage
the herb garden
discussions
for a
were
long
temporarily
time.
suspended.
It was only when he was
The
about to
Xiao
leave
family
that he
naturally
saw a
couldn't
senior
sit
sister.
still. However, after
Xiao
chatting with his
Tingan
senior
learned his
sister
lesson
for a
this time.
while,
It
must
Liyue
have been
found
that
out
sly
that they were
old
actually
fox
preparing
for the
Xiao
sect
Rong,
assembly
who gave
that
him
would be
some
held a month
pointers.
later.
Jiang
After the
Yuqing
news
had
spread,
long expected them
all
to be
the
like
disciples
this.
of the Chengshi
So he wasn't
Pavilion
shocked at
were
all.
on high alert. However,
They knew very
Jiang
well
Yuji
that this
really didn't
time,
come out.
which
Almost
surprised
everyone
him.
was here.
It seems like
for the
she's really
Chengshi
reflecting.
Pavilion.
But
But
it
it
could
could
also
also
be
be
that
that
her
her
heart
heart
was
was
coveting the
hurt by my
position
slap
of one of the
a few
4
days
major
had
sects
passed,
for a long time.
And the anger in
Obviously,
Jiang Yuqing's heart
they had
had
added
long
fuel to the
dissipated.
fire when the
Thinking of the
conflict was
scene
brought
back
forward.
then,
He
only
also
if they were
felt that
strong
he had
enough
gone
and
overboard.
performed well
I doted
enough
on
in the sect
Jiang
meeting
Yuji since
could
she
they
was
keep
young.
the Chengshi
In the past,
Pavilion's
I didn't
current
even say
position.
anything harsh to
Therefore,
her, but now,
everyone entered a
I
state
personally
of
slapped
diligent
her.
cultivation.
She was his
Shu
biological
Liyue
sister
arrived at
after all.
Yuchi Song's
So
residence
Jiang
alone.
Yuqing couldn't
When
help
she
but
arrived,
feel
he
hearted.
was sitting on a stone
I'll
bench
go and
in
see
the
her.
courtyard. There was a chessboard on the stone
kept
table
thinking
in
about
front of him.
how to
The
compensate
chessboard looked familiar.
Jiang Yuji the
Shu
entire
Liyue
way.
took a closer
After
look
this incident
and recognized
she
that
should
the
have learned
chessboard
her
was the
lesson.
one that she
In
had
the
given
future,
to Yuchi
as
Song.
long as she's
At that
smarter
time,
and knows what
she
to
was
do
still young
and what
and had
not
found
to
her
do,
own
it's
jade
fine.
material to
If she
carve.
really likes
However,
Xiao
because the
Tingan,
jade material
it's not
was
like she
hard,
can't continue.
it took her a
He
lot of
walked to
effort
the door
to carve
and
it.
directly asked,
Some of the
"How are
details
you?"
were very rough.
Fourth Missy?
Even when she
When the
thought
two
about
servants
it later,
standing at
she
the
felt
door
that it
saw
was
Jiang
too
Yuji.
horrible to look
They
at.
were instantly
She
shocked.
thought that he had thrown the
Greetings,
chessboard to a
eldest
corner
young
long ago.
master.
She didn't
Even though it was
expect
already
that.
late.
He still had
Jiang
intact.
Yuqing could still
Master.
clearly see the
She lowered her
fear that
voice.
flashed across
Yuchi
their
Song
faces.
came back to his
He
senses.
slightly knitted his brows.
There was still a
and
trace of
glanced at the
confusion in his
tightly shut
eyes.
door.
Obviously,
Where's she?
He was not
She
looking
heard
at the
that I'm
chessboard
coming.
just now, but she didn't come out to
Instead,
welcome me.
he was thinking
the two
about
servants
something.
hurriedly
Liu?
said,
You're here.
"Eldest young master."
Shu Liyue walked over
eldest young
and
master.
carefully looked at
Fourth
Yuchi
Missy
Song.
isn't feeling
She was
well
slightly
today,
surprised.
so she's
It
already
had only been
asleep.
one night,
But Yuchi Song seemed to have
Why you can come
aged
back tomorrow,
several
right?
years in an
Sun
instant.
Chi went
His
forward
eyes were
and
red,
hollered.
and there were
How
dark
dare you?
circles under
When
his
is it your
eyes.
turn to order?
It seemed that he
eldest
hadn't
young
slept
master
all
around?
night.
The
He
two
looked very
servants were
haggard.
shocked.
Obviously,
as they hurriedly
what happened
knelt down
yesterday had a
and begged
great
for
impact
mercy.
on him.
A trace
Shu
of
Liyue's
suspicion
heart
surfaced
ached faintly.
in Jiang Yuqing's
She quickly
heart.
lowered her eyes.
It's not time for her to
Master,
sleep yet.
I'm
Why
here
is she
today
asleep?
because I
She's
have
not
something
feeling
to
well.
give you.
What
Yuchi
exactly
Song
is
looked
going
at her
on?
in
The
confusion.
two servants
Shu
stuttered
Liyue
and
couldn't
couldn't
even
even
some
speak
things from the
properly.
interspatial
Jiang
ring
Yuqing
one
had already
after
guessed
another.
nothing and coldly
At first,
said,
Yuchi Song
"Open the
didn't
door."
react.
But
But
after
after
he opened two
immediately,
boxes in a row,
the two
he
servants were
immediately
shocked
realized
and
something
didn't dare to
and
move.
looked at Chu Lu
Jiang
in
Yuqing
shock.
impatiently went forward,
These are the things you
kicked the
sold
door
the 100
open,
Herbs building
and walked
before.
in.
I
He
brought
searched
them
the
back
room,
for you.
but didn't see
As Chu Lu
Jiang
spoke,
Yuji's figure.
she took out
His
the last
face
few
quickly
things.
darkened.
A small
Where did
hill
fourth
quickly
missy
piled
go?
up at their
The
feet.
two servants
Except
knelt
for
on the
those that have been
ground
sold
and trembled.
The rest are here.
Seeing that the matter
Chu
had
Lu
been
exposed,
Yuchi
and that
Song looked
eldest
at
young
those
master
things in a
was so
daze,
angry,
and his
they
lips
could only
trembled
explain the
slightly.
cause and effect
Lu
of the
Yu,
matter.
you don't have
After
to do
listening,
this.
Chu Lu
Jiang
said,
Yuqing's
"I don't know what you don't
aura
want to give
seemed
up,
to freeze.
so I tried my best to
He
bring all of
thought
them
that she
back.
would be more restrained in
These
the
things
future
may be just
after learning her
ordinary
lesson this
things
time.
for others.
He didn't
But they
expect
may be very
that she
important
still
to you.
didn't repent.
Since I have
What would
the
you do
ability,
outside? I should help
now
you.
that she was like this,
Yuchi Song
if
seemed
she
to be
did
choked by
anything
something.
stupid again,
After a while,
at this
he
moment,
looked at Chu
the
Lu
sound
Well
of
with a
hurried
complicated
footsteps
expression.
suddenly came from
How did you get
outside.
so much money?
Jiang Yuqing got
He
up
knew that Chu
and
Lu
walked
Well
outside.
spent
The
mooching
door
his
suddenly
money
opened
when she went
when he saw the
100 Herbs
familiar
building
figure in
for
the
first time.
courtyard. But now she had moved out of Mooching's house, and Jiang Yuji's footsteps suddenly froze. She definitely couldn't spend Mooching his money anymore. A better reading experience, and these things added up were worth a lot. You don't have to worry about that. If I couldn't afford it, I wouldn't have helped you bring these back. Chapter 609. After Chu Lu the courtyard fell into she saw that Yuchi Song, Jiang Yuji was shocked and flustered. She could only tell Yuchi Song about her extortion. Didn't he say that he had something to do these few days? She only mentioned how long has he been waiting here? Didn't mention most importantly. Did he know what had happened to her today? Yuchi Song was still shocked after hearing many thoughts flashed. He only knew that Yin Fengqi had always didn't know how to deal with it, but he didn't know that he was so good at it. Shouted he could earn so much money. Where did you go today? Just a few minutes. Jiang Yuji, but after listening to Chu Luyue, it seemed that he still didn't know much better. She stood in the middle of the piled up at his feet, trying her best to hide her figure before he finally said, "If that's the case, as long as brother didn't see her like this, Liu still hope to fool him." Chu Lu shook her head building today. "Master," she stammered, "you and I are master and disciple. What were you doing? You're being too polite with me. I just wanted to buy some medicinal herbs. Please browse. I didn't manage to buy the a better reading experience comes from Love Network. I wanted to see if there was anything else I liked." Chapter 602 said timidly. She truly regarded Yuchi Song as her master and respected him from the bottom of her heart. Just say she didn't have this opportunity. You really shouldn't sneak out like this. And I'll let you off this time. Now, there won't be a next time. She finally had the chance to Jiang Yuji hurriedly said, Song looked at Chu Lu, brother. And his eyes looked at her and narrowed his eyes. He only spoke softly after a long while. Why are you standing so far away? After a long time, he said forward and talk. Jiang Yuji didn't you've just become my disciple. Jiang Yuqing but you've already done so much. But seeing Jiang Yuji's timid and fearful even if they were master and disciple, he thought that she was they wouldn't have done so much for each other after just knowing each other. He walked over to Jiang Yuji and said from the beginning, Chu Lu seemed to have no reservations about him. I won't hit you again. As long as you choosing the Chongshu Jiang Yuji suddenly took a step back. Sex without Jiang Yuqing finally realized we're helping him redeem these things. He frowned and quickly walked forward. Listen, this was definitely not something full of bruises appeared in front of him. More important, Jiang Yuqing it contained her intentions. What's wrong with you? Chu Luyue tilted his head and smiled, seeing that she couldn't hide it any longer. Didn't Master help me a lot too? Jiang Yuji could only tell Jiang Yuqing about how the masked man and I might not even have a place to live now and beaten her up. Yuchi Song's mouth curved. She left out the part where she had a dispute according to Chu Luyue's ability. Even if she only said that she had strolled around 100 Herbs building definitely be able to find another good place as soon as she came out. He wanted to ask Jiang Yuqing's face, when he saw the sincere smile that it seemed like water's face, he suddenly his eyes were burning with anger. In fact, this was when he first saw her. He also felt that she was very compatible with him. City didn't know for some reason. It wasn't a problem for him to teach her a lesson himself. He would always be exceptionally but if others were to bully her and close, then he would definitely not allow it. He wouldn't have given her the whistle that he had originally planned to give to Little Crescent Moon. He didn't want to reveal item that he had originally this meant that he had come prepared into the coffin. How big although was he had given one to Chu Luyue, did he talk to you? And do you feel any familiarity with him? In fact, a large part of the reason was shook her head Chu Luyue as tears fell from her eyes. Perhaps sometimes the fate between two people was just that person deliberately changed his tone. How about playing? I can't recognize him at all. Yuchi Song suddenly said, looking at that figure, I don't think I've seen him before. Sure, really didn't know that Yuchi Song said, Jiang, just now I was playing by myself for a while. You were playing. Why would someone target you out of the blue? It's your turn to go now. What exactly did you do? Chu Luyue took out a chess piece from the jar. Jiang Yuji looked away guiltily. It was cool to the touch and cried even more fiercely. It could be seen that Yuchi Song had played a lot of. I just came out for a walk, which was why he was able to grind just like that to such a state. Moreover, Chu Luyue even glanced at the chessboard. Said that this was just the beginning. Thought for a moment, brother, I'm so scared. Seeing her like this, slap. Jiang Yuqing stones collided with each other, emitting a soft, trace of suspicion sound in his heart. Yuchi Song's attention was quickly drawn to the game. The anger in his heart burned exchanged blows even more and began to fight. Who exactly was this person? After Chu Luyue played a few chess pieces, he actually dared to lay his hands on Jiang Yuqi's younger sister in West Hill. Your chessboard doesn't look like an ordinary chessboard. He actually dared to Yuchi Song smiled with relief and reminisced. Go back and rest well. I will investigate this matter personally myself. Made this for me. When I find out who this person is, gently nodded. I will definitely not let him off. He placed down another piece. He paused for a moment, softly, glanced at Jiang. I've always heard you mention miserable face. What kind of person is she? Said in a deep voice. This question don't go out during this period of time. As he played Yuji wanted to cover he told Chu Luyue about but the moment she touched it in detail. It would be incomparably painful. He was unwilling to tell others about this. She could only endure the embarrassment however, and grievance perhaps because he had experienced after comforting Jiang Yuji, he was very tired and wanted as soon as he left the courtyard. He said, He subconsciously said a lot.
Go and
Chu
investigate
Liwa listened to him
immediately
quietly
what happened today,
and occasionally
Yes.
chimed in with it.
Remember,
However,
focus on investigating
after listening,
the 100
she
Herbs
realized
building.
that there were many
Yes,
things that
eldest
she did
young
not
master.
remember. But Yuchi's
Knight,
song
at
remembered
the top
them
of Yinlin
very
Peak.
clearly.
Scratch.
Her heart seemed to be
Scratch.
surrounded by some
The sound of a
gentleness.
sword being
After
sharpened
experiencing
was
those
especially
bone-chilling
clear
betrayals,
in the quiet night.
Such
Chu
gentleness
Liwa was sitting
and care
cross-legged on the
seemed
star stone,
extremely precious.
sharpening the cloud sky
The two of them
copper
played a
sword.
few games
After
of
a
Go
few days,
without realizing
her
it.
movements had
After
clearly
half a
become
day,
much more
Chu
proficient,
Liwa stood up
and
and
she was even
bade
more
farewell.
clear about how to exert
In the next few
strength.
days,
This
Chu
way,
Liwa
her
cultivated in
efficiency
room
had
during the
increased
day
by a lot,
and went to Yin
More
Linfeng
importantly,
to sharpen
her physical
the
strength
cloud
had
sky copper
indeed
sword at
become
night.
much stronger.
Although the speed of
On the
sharpening
first
the
day,
sword was
she
still
had a
very
rest
slow,
almost every
she was
hour.
indeed becoming
On the
more
second
and more
day,
skilled with
her
each
arms and
passing
shoulders
day.
were very
In
sore.
the end, but
Her
now
progress
she basically
gradually
only stopped
became
for a while
obvious.
every 2
What
hours.
made her even more
and the
gratified
pain on her
was that
body
in
had
this process,
dissipated by a lot.
her physical
This made her
strength
feel
had
much
indeed
more at ease,
increased by quite
and
a
she
bit.
sharpened the
Hence,
sword in her hand.
she was even more
patiently.
motivated to
In the
sharpen
night sky,
the cloud
the
sky
moonlight
copper
was
sword.
bright.
Chu
The
Liwa
cold
stayed
moonlight
on
cast
Qingyuan
a
Mountain
huge
just
shadow
like
on
that.
the ground.
Her daily
That was the
life
shadow
was
of the
simple
Star
and
Stone.
plain. Above the shadow,
Chu Yue's
there was a
side
slender
quiet,
figure who was
but
repeating
Xing
the same
became
action
lively.
over and over
The news
again.
of Jian
A gentle
Fengqi
breeze
spending
blew,
6,600,000
Yue's
white
long
crystal
hair
coins
fluttered
by a
slightly.
slave with a faint
Suddenly, a
yuan
spark
body
flew.
quickly
Chu
spread
Liwa was
throughout
stunned.
Xiling City.
That spark just
Mu
now
Hongyu
was a
she
living
pursed
person.
her lips.
There was no
held
way
her
she could
breath,
hide
and focus.
Even if she could hide it
She
for a
pressed
day
her
or
hands
two,
tightly
she would
on
still
the
be
sword
discovered
and
immediately
sharpen it on
when
the
she
Star
appeared
Stone
in
again
front of everyone in
Whoosh.
the future. Hence, Jian Fengqi
The moment
didn't
the
even
sword
think of
rubbed
hiding
against
the
the
Star
Star
Stone.
Stone. In any
An
case,
extremely
he had spent the
bright
money
spark
openly.
flashed
No one
again.
could do anything
Ah,
to him.
Little
In
girl,
the end,
congratulations
he didn't expect
to you.
that
You
everything would
finally
be fine
sharpened the
outside.
cord. Instead,
Taizu's
when he
voice
brought
suddenly
Mu
sounded.
Hongyu back to
Chu
Dragon
Liwa
Teeth
looked
Mountain.
at the cloud
He was
sky
attacked by
copper
his
sword
old
in her
father
hand
head-on and
He
muttered
had just
softly.
stepped through the gate of
For?
Dragon Teeth Mountain.
That's right.
When he was caught
Now, a
by
part of the
Jian
core
Shai
has already been exposed.
Brat, you
As
still dare
long
to
as
come
you
back.
sharpen the rest,
Jian
you can
Fengqi
officially
was stunned.
trigger Tian
He looked at his father, who was in a
this sword,
rage,
and was stunned.
Taizu's voice could
Father?
not conceal
What's
his
wrong
joy.
with you? What's
I
wrong?
originally thought
You still
that
have the
would
nerve
need
to ask
another
me
2
what's
days
wrong?
to do it.
Why don't you
But
look
I
at what
didn't
you've
expect
done?
it to be so
As
smooth.
Jian Shai
Chu
spoke,
Liwa
he
was
continued
very
to hit
intelligent,
Jian Fengqi,
and she was also
Jian
very
Fengqi
persistent.
wanted to run without
She had practically
hesitation.
not slept
He couldn't return
or
to his
rested for
home
the past few days.
However,
it was no
be
wonder that
Jian
she had
Shai's
sharpened the
match?
core
Before he could run
advance.
2 steps,
Hearing
he was blocked.
Taizu's voice, Chu Liwa
Jian
also
Fengqi
seemed to be infected,
immediately
and
admitted
she
his
was
guilt.
faintly excited.
Father,
Although
was
this
wrong.
could not be considered
Only then
as a
did
true
Jian
success in
stop.
sharpening.
However,
it was still a
one
good
of his
start,
hands was still
and
in
it
the
also
air,
gave birth to
as if
some
he would continue to
expectations
hit
in her
him
heart.
at any time.
She wondered what kind of
Speak.
scene it would be
How did you do
when
wrong?
she truly reforged
Jian
this sword.
Fengqi thought
She held the
frantically,
cloud sky
but he still
copper
couldn't
sword in
figure
front
it
of her
out.
eyes.
He could
and
only
looked at it
ask
carefully
tentatively.
for a while. Your son
From the
has
tip
done
of the
too many
sword
wrong
to the upper
things.
body.
Which one are
It
you
was a
talking
clear
about?
sparrow blue
Little
color.
brat.
Jian
Especially
Shai's
as the
slap
tip of the sword,
finally landed
the color was
fiercely.
even more
You're usually
dense
arrogant
and pure,
and presumptuous,
and it was faintly
and your mother
flickering
always
with
indulges
a faint
you.
silver light.
Now,
just
Chu
because you
Liwa
have some
suddenly
money,
had a
you
strong
even dare to
premonition
buy a
in her
slave.
heart.
You've
She
grown
would
up.
definitely
Jian
successfully
Fengqi
forged
finally
a
understood that it was
top-notch
because of
treasure
Mu
sword.
Hongyu.
Mobile users,
He tried to hide
please
his
browse
explained.
and read.
Father,
A better reading
I did this for a
experience
reason.
comes from love.
What other
Network.
reason could there be?
Don't tell me it's because of her faint yuan body. Do you think I don't know what kind of character you have? At this
I've
moment,
heard that the little girl
she suddenly
is
felt a
very
strange
beautiful.
movement.
Did you go
in
for
her
that?
dantian.
It was fine
Chu
that he was
Liwa
usually
looked over,
dissolute and
but
realized
now
that
he
the
actually did
movement
such
was
a
coming from
thing.
the Black
It
Pyramid.
was simply
However,
embarrassing. It
Jian
only lasted
Fengqi
for a
was
while
stunned.
before
Only then
quickly
did he understand
dissipating
what his
as if
father meant.
nothing had happened.
He asked with a
That's
strange
strange.
expression. She frowned.
Father,
This thing had
do you
always
think I
been
bought
quiet,
her back because
except
of
for
her
the time when it
appearance?
caused a
What else?
ruckus in the
Jian
Tianlin
Shai's
God
chest
realm.
heaved as
It
he
had been
glared
very
and said,
obedient.
If you
That
weren't so
movement just
insensible,
now
would
was
Liu
definitely
abandon
not her
our
imagination.
Dragon Teeth Mountain?
She suddenly thought
and
of
run
something
to the
and looked
Chengshi
up at her
Pavilion.
surroundings.
Mobile
There was
users,
nothing on the flat
please browse
mountaintop.
and read.
The mountain
A better
breeze
reading
blew,
experience
and the
comes
leaves
from
rustled.
Love Network. Apart from that, there was nothing else. She
looked around
Chapter
for a while.
603.
After confirming
Jian
that
Fengqi
everything
was
was
taken
normal,
aback.
she
Well, what did
retracted
this have
her
to do
gaze.
with?
Could it be that I'm
Chu
really
chose the
overthinking?
Chongshu Pavilion.
She thought that
Wasn't
the
that her
boss of the
choice?
precious treasure
What did it
pavilion
have to
had
do with
come
him
just now.
However,
in
otherwise,
Jin Shai's eyes,
she really didn't know
his
how to
dumbfounded
explain
look
this movement.
was a sign of
However,
guilt.
he
The
pointed at
forest was
Jian
silent.
Fengqi's nose
Chu Liwei
and
thought
said
for a while,
angrily, "Put this
"You,
matter
you,
aside."
Not only
and
did you
started
hurt
sharpening
Liu's
her
heart,
sword again.
you even
Every
dragged
time she
other
sharpened
girls
it,
into this.
a spark would
How could I have a
burst
son
out
like
from
you?
it.
Jian
bright light
Fengqi
shone
closed
on
his
her
eyes
face,
with a headache,
and her eyes
this was
shone
a big
brightly.
misunderstanding.
A gentle breeze blew past.
Where did you hear all this
The next
from?
day,
Don't you even trust your own
went
son?
down the mountain.
Jian Shai was
building
heartbroken
to get her.
If you were reliable,
Chong
would
Wanzhou's
I,
body recovered
your father,
faster
be
than
like
she
this?
expected.
It's all your
And the
fault.
consumption of
Jian
herbs
Fengqi
was self-evident.
was speechless.
The one she bought
he said
previously
weakly,
could only
no
last
matter what,
for a short period
you
of
have
time.
to give me a chance
Therefore,
to explain, right?
she came to 100
Jian
Herbs
Shai
building
finally
today
said,
to discuss
"Get
with
in
them
here
about
Jian
getting more.
Fengqi was
As soon as she
secretly glad
reached
that
the
he had
entrance
asked
of
Mu
100
Hongyu
Herbs building,
to wait
a
outside
servant
the mountain gate
immediately
before he
greeted
came
her
back.
warmly.
Otherwise,
Miss Chu,
if
you're
she
finally
saw this
seen.
He
Please
would
come
lose
in.
all his face.
Chu Luiyue raised
Then I'll
her
invite
eyebrows.
Hongyu over.
Why did these
As he
people's
spoke,
attitudes
he turned
towards
around
her seem
and suddenly
to be more
saw that
eager than
Mu
before?
Hongyu had come
I'm just
over.
here to get some herbs.
She was standing not
Why
far
does it seem
away
like something
and watching
big
the
has
scene.
happened?
A
Even if I'm a
disciple
black
of Dragon
gold-carved
Thief
VIP
Mountain was
now.
standing next
This
to her.
seems a little too
Jian
much.
Fengqi's
The servant had
eyelids
already
twitched
bowed
violently
and invited her
Did
in.
she
At the
see
same time,
everything just now?
he said,
Jian
General
Shai saw
manager,
that he was
you
stunned
happens
and
to be
couldn't help
upstairs.
but sneer.
Would you like to meet him?
Since you dare to bring her
Chu
back,
Luiyue smiled.
why don't you dare to
shook
let
her
her
head.
come up?
No need.
I've already asked
I'm
someone
just here to get the
invite her
herbs I
over.
ordered.
With
General
that, he
manager
walked
Yu
past
is
the
a busy
stiff
man,
Jian Fengqi
so I won't
and
walk
waste his
toward
time.
Mu Hongyu.
After
When
buying
he got
all the
closer
things in
and
Yuchi
saw
song,
Mu Hongyu's
she came to the
appearance,
100 Herbs
he cursed
building to
Jian
pick some
Fengqi
common herbs.
even more
She didn't
fiercely
spend
in
much
his
on
heart.
other things.
This girl looks like
Although
she's
this wasn't
only
a
in her
small
teens.
expense,
How
it was just a
dare
drop
he?
in the ocean.
Thinking of
for
this,
Chu Luiyue.
Jian Shai's face
As soon as he
revealed
finished
a
speaking,
kind smile.
he heard a
He
familiar
wanted to make himself
voice
look less
coming from the
fierce.
stairs.
For fear
I'm more than
of
happy to
scaring the
have
girl.
Miss Chu here.
Young lady,
How could I
I'm
possibly
the mountain like
dislord of
Miss
Dragon
Chu
Teeth Mountain
for wasting my time.
What's your name?
Yuling
Mu
walked down
Hongyu
the
was
stairs
also
with a smile.
stunned when she saw the
God
scene
knows
when
that
she
he didn't
came up.
sleep well
Who would have
last
thought
night.
that Jian
He came here early in the
Fengqi,
morning
just
just
to
to
wait
so
for
arrogant
Chu
and
Luiyue,
unbridled, would actually be chased and beaten up.
Now that he had finally
And
come,
this person
how could he
should
leave
be
just
Jian
like
Fengqi's
that?
father.
The herbs you
She
requested
hurriedly
have
bowed.
already been prepared.
My daughter,
I'll bring them
Mu
to you
Hongyu
in a moment.
greets the mountain
As
chieftain.
Yuling spoke,
Jian Shai
his gaze
saw that she was
inadvertently
clean
swept
and well-mannered,
over Chu Luiyue's
but her body
hand.
seemed to
That
have suffered
Qin
a
ring
lot of injuries.
seemed to belong
His
to
heart
Master.
was immediately
Yuling's eyes
filled with
twitched.
tenderness.
Last time,
Don't be nervous.
the universe ring
With
on
Chu
me and his
Luiyue's
mother
hand
around
was Jian
that brat won't
Fengqi's.
dare to bully
Now,
you.
it was masters
If he had
in the blink
wronged you
of an eye.
before,
Feel
speaking
free to
of
tell me.
which,
He was
I
the
will
one who
definitely
said
help you teach him
but
a
even he
lesson.
didn't expect that
Mu
Master
Hongyu
would
blinked.
immediately send
That,
Yin Qin
or Mountain Lord,
to deliver the universe.
you seem to
ring in
have
person
misunderstood.
after the news was
Young
sent.
Master Jian
Fortunately,
didn't make me feel wrong.
He had realized
In
Chu
fact,
Luiyue's
it was all
identity
thanks to him
yesterday, that I was
Now,
able to
when he
escape
saw the ring
from
on her
the
hand,
Hall. He could still
Jian Shai
maintain
secretly
a calm
thought
face.
that this young lady
Otherwise,
was naive.
he was afraid
Others might
that he
be
couldn't
interested in the
control
fate
his
you on
expression.
body.
But
Jian
Chu Luiyue looked
Fengqi
at him
definitely
strangely and asked with a smile,
I
was
heard
only
that
so
general
extravagant
manager
because he had a little more money in
But
his
recently,
hands.
it
Now,
seems that
the
you often
entire
appear
West Hill
here.
was filled with
She had been
rumors
here
that Jian
3 times,
Fengqi had
and she had
ulterior
met him
motives
twice.
for being so
Yuling
extravagant.
laughed.
Otherwise,
Miss Chu,
with his
after
talent
all,
and wealth, I'm the manager
why would he
of the
need to
100
do
Herbs
this?
building.
More
Where else can I
importantly,
be?
if
He
Liu
glanced
knew
behind
about
Chu
this,
Luiyue
wouldn't he
and
look
asked
down on
curiously,
Jian Fengqi
"Why are you
even
here?"
more?
Why
To
did
think
Miss
that he had
Chu come here alone
painstakingly
today?
persuaded
Where's the young
Chu
man
Luiyue
from before to come
Chu
to
Luiyue
Dragon
raised her
Thief
eyebrows
Mountains in
Wanzhou?
Thousand Garden? He's
It
still
was all
cultivating
ruined
by this brat.
So I came here myself.
Jian Shai said in a
Why?
low voice.
General Manager,
You
don't
seems to be
worry.
quite curious
After you
about
come
Wanzhou.
here,
No
Yuling
one will dare
immediately
to do
waved his
anything
hand
to you
and laughed.
I will help
No,
you
no,
make the
Miss
decision.
Chu,
Mu
please
Hongyu
don't
couldn't help
misunderstand.
but glance at Jian
It's just that you came
Fengqi
here
behind
together
him.
before.
Your father
But
seems to have
today
gotten
you
something
came
here
here
alone.
alone.
I'm a little
Jian
curious.
Fengqi was
Chu
expressionless.
Luiyue smiled slightly.
It was rare
and
for him to
didn't
do a
continue
good
to say
thing.
anything.
But why did it seem
Yuling
like he was still
asked
in the wrong?
tentatively.
Then,
Jian Shai saw
the medicinal
Mu Hongyu
materials you
secretly
came here to
looking at
take
Jian
today
Fengqi
are
and
all prepared
thought that
for
she was
him.
being
Chu
threatened by
Luiyue
Jian
gave him a
Fengqi.
meaningful look.
He was even angry.
Yuling seemed to be
This brat had
particularly
let down
curious
Liu
about her.
and Mu Hongyu.
Oh no,
Mu
About
Hongyu
Chong
saw that
Wanzhou
his face
today,
was even
she said
angrier
ambiguously
and knew
that he
had
had
misunderstood.
Yuling was
She
secretly
hurriedly
anxious.
said,
He
Master,
originally wanted to take the
you
chance
have
to get some
misunderstood.
information from Chu
Young Master
Luiyue,
Jian and
but
I
she was
are
watertight,
friends, and he could
So is
not
Liu.
get anything out of her.
Jian Shai was
He
stunned.
knew that if he
he
What did you
continued to
say?
ask like this,
Muhong Yu
Chu
explained,
Luiyue would
"You don't
definitely
know.
be suspicious.
Lu Yu and I
so
are
he
both in the
immediately
Empire of
changed the
Yao
topic.
Cheng.
We
He
have
glanced
known
at
each
her
other for a
hand,
long time,
and a trace of
are also
surprise
from the
appeared
same
on his
academy.
face.
We have
He
a good
seemed to ask
relationship.
inadvertently.
When we were in the Empire of Yao Cheng,
Miss Chu's
we met
interspatial
young
ring
Master Jian.
looks
Young Master
extraordinary.
Jian even
Chu
took care of
Luiyue
my mother's
lowered her
health.
eyes and
The more
glanced at him.
Jian Shai
It was
listened,
indeed
the
quite
stranger he
eye-catching
felt.
to
The
wear
more
this
he listened,
interspatial
the more
ring.
he felt that
Anyone
something
with
was
some
wrong.
eyesight
Why did
could
this sound
basically
different from what he had
see that this
expected?
thing was
This time,
extraordinary.
I accidentally
However,
wandered here.
she still chose
Coincidentally,
to wear it.
young
Hearing
Master
Yuling's question,
Jian and
she
Lu Yu were
smiled
both in
slightly
Xiang Hall
and said,
"Young Master
"Someone gave it
Jian
to me,
helped and
Yuling
bought
asked
me
with a
and
smile.
brought me out.
The person
We
who
just
can
came
give
back
this
from
thing
Lu
to
Yu's
you
place.
must be quite noble."
Jian Shai
and he should have a
reacted for a
close
moment,
relationship with
and his
Miss Chu,
expression immediately became
Chu Luiyue
very
rubbed
interesting.
the interspatial ring
This
on her
meant
hand.
that his son didn't go out to harm little girls.
It was
but went
cold to
help
the
a friend
touch,
instead.
smooth
Then didn't
and
he just
delicate.
Jian Shai slowly
halfway
asked.
through her words.
Is what you
She
said
suddenly
true?
stopped.
Mu Hongyu
was
was
hurriedly
obviously
nodding.
inquiring
What I
about
said
her.
just now
Could it
was
be
not
that he
a
had
lie.
heard something?
You have really
or he had other
misunderstood
intentions?
young Master
Chu Luiwei
Jian this
glanced
time.
at him calmly.
Jian Shai's
Recalling
next
his
stiff abnormality
as he turned to look
today,
at Jian
she really
Fengqi.
felt uneasy.
Jian Fengqi
A
suddenly
sentence
lingered
smiled
between her
coldly.
lips for a moment.
Did you hear that?
But she
Mobile
swallowed
users,
it back.
please browse.
She smiled
and
at Yuling.
A better reading
It's a gift from
experience
friend of mine.
comes from Love
At the same
Network.
time, in a room on the 3rd floor, Rongxiu slowly
Chapter
let go of his hand.
604. A teacup shattered
coughed hard
hard
with
with
his
his
fist
and
against his
spiderweb-like
lips.
cracks
So,
spread
you really
all
did it
over
to help.
it.
However, for
Jian
some reason,
Fengqi's smile
the teacup
became colder.
didn't collapse.
If you
and
don't
it still
believe me,
maintained its
you can go to the
previous
Chongshu
intact
Pavilion
appearance
and ask
the
the
tea
Chu
inside
Jian
slowly
Shai
flowed
finally
out of
felt
the
guilty.
cracks
It
and soon
seems-
spread
it
on the
seems
table,
that I really
forming a
misunderstood my
pool of
son.
irregular water
Then
stains.
before this,
Yan
Yu
Xing
and Lu Yu,
who was standing next to
Jian
him,
Fengqi's
felt a chill
eyebrows twitched.
all over her body.
He suddenly
She
had
couldn't
an ominous
wait to
premonition.
disappear from here.
You misunderstood
immediately.
me.
And
After
her.
a moment,
You even said that I
Rongxiu's
invited her
thin lips
to Dragon
curled up
Teeth
slightly.
Mountain
What's
with
going
a
on?
faint smile.
Jian Shai laughed.
Friend?
Yan Qing
nothing,
closed
nothing.
her eyes.
I
and
just
casually chatted with
It's
Lu Yu.
over.
Mobile
Jian
users,
Fengqi
please
didn't
browse
believe
and
him.
read.
He took 2
A better
steps
reading
forward
experience
and looked at his
comes
father.
from love. Did you say something that you shouldn't have? Jian Shai avoided his gaze. That chapter
Actually,
611.
I didn't say anything.
Not only did he have
I just thought that the
Chong
girl
Wanzhou
was
to
smart,
serve him,
pretty,
but now he
and
didn't even have the
knowledgeable.
title of
I thought that she would be a
master's
good
fiancée.
daughter-in-law.
But
Yan
don't
Xing
worry, I
lowered
didn't
his
say
head,
anything.
hoping that his
That
master would
Jian
treat him
Fengqi's
as an
face
invisible
was
person.
full of disbelief.
He didn't hear anything.
He subconsciously
hear
glanced
anything.
at Mu
Yan
Hongyu
Xing.
next to him.
Rongxiu opened his
Chu Luiwei,
mouth, his tone
and I are
cold.
really just
Yan
friends.
Qing hurriedly replied.
He had only been away for a
Yes,
while.
master.
How did such a
How long
big
has I been away from
misunderstanding
capital?
happen?
Master,
His father actually
it's
thought
been 27
that he liked Chu
days.
Luiwei.
And
And
he
he
even
even
wanted
wanted
her
her
to
to
be
be
his
his daughter-in-law.
I left
Jian
the capital on the
Fengqi
same day
knew his father
as
too
you
well.
were.
If he really
So,
thought so,
it should be 27
he could only
days
imagine
since
what
we
he
last
said
met.
to Chu Luiwei.
His tone
that
was
day.
still calm,
Thinking of this
as if he was
scene,
just talking
Jian
about an
Fengqi
ordinary
was
thing.
so embarrassed
However,
that he had
Yan
goosebumps
Qing felt
all
that
over
his
his
body
body.
was getting colder
Jian
and colder.
Shai muttered strangely.
He quickly looked up
Since you're
and
just
saw that
friends,
the puddle of water
why
on
didn't
the
she
table
come
had
to Dragon
silently
Teeth Mountain?
frozen into ice.
Jian Fengqi
He had to
held
bite
his
the
forehead
forehead
and
despair.
said, he felt that he had no face to go
Downstairs
out and see
Yuling
Chu
was
Luiwei
also
again.
stunned when he heard
And Mu
this.
Hongyu,
Friend,
Jian Fengqi,
didn't Master say
who had
that
lived
this
a
was
carefree and
Why did they
happy
become
life for
friends
more
with
than
Chu
20
Luiwei?
years?
He
Finally
struggled to
experienced the
ask.
feeling of
They shouldn't
being
be
unable
ordinary
to sit
friends.
still, right?
He wanted to find
Such
a hole
precious
in the ground
thing.
to hide in.
What's wrong with
And all
General
of this
Manager
was
Yu thanks
today.
to his father?
Why are you suddenly
Jian
so
Shai
interested in my
glanced at Mu
affairs?
Hongyu.
Chu
and
Luiwei
suddenly
interrupted
remembered
him with a
something.
smile.
Then
Yuling
you
glanced
brought
at her
Mu
vigilant
Hongyu back
expression
today
and
because
realized that she
Jian
seemed to
Fengqi's
have
voice was as
misunderstood.
cold as ice.
He really didn't mean
I thought that you would be
anything else.
happy to
He just
accept
wanted
a
to ask a
disciple
few more
with a
questions on
faint
behalf of
body.
his master.
Now,
Yuling
it seems
still
that I
was
wanted
wrong.
to defend himself.
Jian Shai was stunned
But he was
for a
afraid
moment
that he would
and
make things
immediately
worse in
reacted.
this situation.
He was surprised
He could
and
only
happy.
force a smile.
Hongyu
and
is
said,
going to join Dragon
Miss
Teeth
Chu,
Mountains.
please
That's
don't
great.
misunderstand. Then he quickly
I just asked
scanned Mu
casually.
Hongyu from head
At this
to toe.
moment,
A
the
faint
servant
body.
brought the
This girl had a
prepared
virtual
herbs
yuan
over.
body. Chu
This was
Luiwei
something that
didn't
many
continue
people
to
begged
pursue the
for,
matter,
but
she
couldn't
took
get
the things
if she could
and
really
put them
become
into
his
the
universe
disciple.
ring.
How much
By the
face
way,
would she have?
there's one
when
more
she went
thing
out?
that I need General
Those
Manager
old
Yu's help with
bastards
today.
outside.
The herbs
must
that
be
I ordered
envious to
before
death.
are not enough
After all this
recently.
time, it
So,
turned out that
I want to
Jian
double the amount on the
Fengqi
basis
was
of
not
first.
happy for him.
I wonder if
But for
General
this,
Manager Yu.
Jian Shai was
yes.
overjoyed.
That's not a
and
problem at
nodded
all.
repeatedly. Yuling did not
Good,
say
good.
anything.
Why don't you
and
become my
immediately
disciple
agreed.
today?
Seeing that he
Today.
had achieved his goal,
Jian
Jian
Luiwei
Fengqi
did not
heaved a
stay
sigh
any
of
longer
relief in his
and
heart.
quickly left.
Originally,
Yuling
he was a
only
little
turned
worried
around
that his
and
father
went
would be
upstairs
apprehensive
after a
because of
figure
Mu
had
Hongyu's
completely
identity
disappeared from
as a
sight.
slave.
Just as he
But
walked
now,
to the door of the room,
it seemed that there was no
before he
problem.
even walked in.
However,
he already
his
felt
expression
an
did not
unusually
change.
cold
He only
aura.
said coldly,
Yuling raised his
"Aren't
eyes
you a little too
and
impatient?"
quickly exchanged a
It's
look
not like
with
you
Yan
haven't
Xing.
accepted
There was
a
some
disciple
sympathy
before.
in Yan Xing's
Do you have to be
eyes.
so excited?
Of all things to
Jian
talk
Shai
about,
thought
with
about
Chu
it and
Luiwei,
agreed.
he just had to
Mu
talk about
Hongyu
the
had just
interspatial
arrived.
ring.
He did
Not
not
only
want to
did he
scare
want to
her.
chat,
Thinking of
he even
this,
wanted to
he
ask
smiled
what
at Mu
Sin.
Hongyu and
Now that this was great.
Hung you.
He asked such a question.
Today is your first
Ling
time
became
in Dragon
even more
Teeth
nervous.
Mountain. Why don't you let
Sure
this
enough,
kid show
the
you
conversation just
around?
now
Mu
had been
Hongyu
heard
did
by
not
the
take
master,
the
but
previous
he didn't expect
misunderstanding
Chu
to heart.
Lu to say
Seeing that Jian
Wasn't
Shai
his shooting
was very
himself in the
warm and
foot.
polite to her, she was very happy. She
Master,
smiled brightly.
Yu Ling
and her
said in a
almond-shaped
trembling
eyes
voice.
sparkled. His back was
Thank you
already
very
drenched
much,
in cold
Master.
sweat.
Jian
Jian
Shai
Shai
exhorted
exhorted a few more
Did she
times
ask for
before
more
leaving.
medicinal materials?
Jian
Just
Fengqi
now?
and Mu
Yu
Hongyu
Ling
were
said
left looking at each
hurriedly.
other.
Yes.
Jian Fengqi
Miss
thought
Lu
for a
Yu
moment
said
and
that
said,
she wanted
I'll
twice
show you
as much
around
as
and let you
before.
familiarize
Do the
yourself
100
with the
Herbs
place.
building have
I'll also
so
ask them
many
to tidy up a
medicinal
place for you to
materials?
stay.
Well,
Mu Hongyu
we do have them
nodded
for
with a
now,
sincere
but
face.
according to the amount that
Young
Madam
Master
wants,
Jian,
we
you
have
and
to
Hill
find someone
Master
to supply
are
them
great
as
people.
soon as possible.
I really don't know how to
In
thank
fact,
you.
most
Jian
of the medicinal
Fengqi
materials
chuckled
were not
and
very
reached out his
expensive,
hand.
and
He
were very
originally
calm.
wanted to use the
But a
bone
few of them
fan
were
to hit
very
her head.
valuable.
But
and
when he
rare.
saw her thin
Even
face,
if the 100 herbs
his heart
building
skipped a
wanted
beat.
to take out
He
so
switched
many
to his other
medicinal
hand
materials
and
and
clicked his
continuously,
finger.
it was
"You
actually
can only
not that
thank
easy.
me.
But don't
100
worry,
herbs building.
we dare
On
not
the third
slack
floor.
off on Madam's request.
Master, we must
This is Miss
fulfill it,"
Lu Yu's
Yuling
private
said
room.
solemnly.
Yuling stood at the
Rongxiu
side with his
smiled
shoulders slightly bowed
Yin
and
Qing
said
closed his
respectfully.
eyes again. His face
He didn't
looked
realize
calm
it
as
before,
usual,
but
his
now he
slightly
suddenly
tensed
realized that
chin
Yuling was
showed his
really not
nervousness
very
at this
smart
time.
in this regard.
He never expected
Yuling finally
that his master would
realized that
suddenly
something was
come
wrong.
to West Hill
And then
at
an
this time.
idea
Didn't he
flashed in his
say that he
mind.
wouldn't be
A
coming
large
in the near
part of those
future
medicinal
and
materials
asked
were
him to take
prepared
care
for
of
Chong
everything?
Wanzhou. But in the
Now
blink of an
that she
eye,
had increased
he
the
came
amount of
directly.
medicinal materials.
When he saw his
It meant
master
that
here today,
not
he
only
was
was
so
she
scared
helping
that his
Chong
heart
Wanzhou,
almost jumped
but she
out
was
of his
also
chest.
doing more than before.
Since I received your message
Compared
last
to the
time,
situation
I prepared
where
this
his master
room, but didn't
Miss
even have
Lu
a
Yu
proper
hasn't been
title.
here yet.
Yuling
Rongxiu,
swallowed hard.
who was
He seemed
dressed
to have
in white,
taken a few more
heard
steps
this
on the
and
road
asked,
to death.
"What did she buy when she came here?"
Rongxiu got up and
Yuling
walked outside.
immediately said,
Chu Luo
"Miss
walked
Lu
out
Yu
of the
came
100
here
Herbs
twice."
building.
The first time she bought, she had a
He
good
thought that his
impression of
master
Yuling
was just
before,
asking
but today
casually.
was really a
After he
little
said a few
strange.
things,
Ordinary
he saw that his
people wouldn't
master
ask
didn't
those
intend to interrupt
questions.
him.
As
So
the
he had to bite
manager
the
of the
bullet
100
and
Herbs
continue.
building, how could
Fortunately,
Yuling not know
when he realized that
this
his
was
master
inappropriate?
treated
But he
Chu
still
Luo
asked.
differently.
If she hadn't
He was
stopped in
particularly
time,
concerned
he seemed
about
to
it.
have wanted to ask
Otherwise,
he
I
wouldn't
don't know
be able
what
to
he's
speak
planning
now.
to do.
It wasn't
Thinking
until
about it,
Yuling's mouth
Chu
was
Luo
dry
came
that
to
he
the
told
place
his
where she
master
sent the letter.
everything.
She
A lot
walked
of
in
sweat
and
appeared
saw the
on his
person who
forehead.
she had asked to help deliver the letter at
His
once.
master didn't get impatient
She was overjoyed
and listened
Perhaps
to
there was a
him from
reply.
beginning to end.
Therefore,
These are
she
all the
quickened her
things that
pace
Miss Lu
and
Yu bought
walked
when
up
she
to the
came
man.
here. She asked what's
Rongxiu
wrong.
thought for a moment
Hello,
and said,
may I know
"There
if
seemed to
there's
be a
a
lot
reply
of
to the
things that
message
belong
sent
to the
Country Yao
pavilion
Shen?"
master of Chengshi
The man stopped what he
Pavilion,
was doing
Yu Qi
and looked at Chu Luo.
Yuling was
The
slightly
moment their
surprised.
gazes met,
He didn't expect
the smile
his
on
master to
Chu
know about
Luo's
this.
face
He
froze.
quickly said,
"This master
gaze.
is wise."
This is
the last
the
time
man
Miss Lu Yu
seemed to have
came.
realized
She
what
did
she
buy
was
all the
thinking
things
and
left by
said
Elder
calmly,
Song. I just
"Now,
returned.
that she was a
I haven't
disciple of
tidied up the
Chengshi
things
Pavilion.
yet.
She must
Please
have
wait
bought these
aside."
things to return to
Chu
Yu
Luo
Song.
came back
In
to her
that case,
senses
Yu
and
Song's
nodded.
luck was really
Okay.
good.
With that,
Rongxiu
she walked
raised
to
the
the
corner of
side.
his mouth
The
slightly.
man skillfully
Sure
sorted
enough,
the letters in his
this
hand
was indeed what she
and
would
handed
do.
them to different
Yuling
people.
sensed that his
A man
master's
laughed
mood
loudly.
seemed to be better
Qin
than when he
Shi,
first came.
after you came back
but he
this
didn't
time,
dare to ask
your
more.
efficiency
At this
seems
moment,
to have
there was
improved
a sudden
lot.
noise outside.
The man smiled.
He could
and
vaguely
didn't say
hear the
anything.
name Chu Luo.
Rongxiu
The man
narrowed
who
his
spoke
eyes
seemed to be
slightly.
used to this.
Yuling's
He
heart
only
sank,
chuckled
and
and
looked
he
away.
immediately said,
The others were also
"Master,
doing their own things.
it seems that someone is
the
making
man
trouble
called Qin Shi
downstairs.
had been working
I'll go
silently.
down and take a look."
After about half an
Rongxiu
hour,
nodded gently.
he finally walked
Yuling
towards
hurriedly
Chu
rushed
Luo
out
with a letter.
When he
in his
reached
hand.
the first
This
floor,
is the
he
reply
saw a
letter.
young woman
Chu Luo took a
standing
look.
in the middle of
Mu
the
Hong Yu's
exhibition hall.
name was
She
written
said
on the
impatiently,
envelope. It should be
"I
a
said,
letter from
I want all the
Ping
things
Jiang
that Chu
and his
Luo
wife
bought from
to
here
Mu
for the
Hong
first
Yu."
time.
She looked
Don't
up
you
at
understand
Qin Shi.
human language?
Thank you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 612. Qin Shi said, "Miss Chu, you're too polite." Chu Luo kept the letter and turned to leave. After taking 2 steps, she suddenly thought of something and turned back to look at Qin Shi. "All right, I have some things I want to send back after packing, but I heard that some things can't pass through heaven's canopy. Can you go back with me and help me check?" Qin Shi looked at the man who spoke earlier. That man waved his hand coolly. "Anyway, you've already finished your work for today. Go with Miss Chu." Now, Chu Luo was the most popular person in Xiling, and it was rumored that she was extraordinarily rich. Who didn't want to have a relationship with her? Who knows? He might even be rewarded more than the others. Qin Shi thanked him and walked to Chu Luo's side. "Miss Chu, please." The two of them were silent along the way. When they reached the house, Chu Luo invited them to the front hall. After confirming that the surroundings were safe, Chu Luo turned around and looked at Qin Shi. She quickly walked to him and lowered her voice. "Jihan." Qin Shi's eyes moved slightly as he nodded slightly. "Your Highness." It was indeed him. Chu Luo was shocked. "Why are you here?" When she first saw Qin Shi, she recognized that this person was not the one from before. After their eyes met, she was sure that he was not anyone else but Jihan, who should still be in Yaochun. Jihan said, "You're alone in Xiling. I was really worried. After receiving your letter, I replaced Qin Shi and returned." Chu Luo frowned slightly. You're taking too much of a risk." Jihan immediately said, "Your Highness, please rest assured." "Don't worry, Your Highness. This subordinate came here
after making complete preparations. They definitely won't notice anything amiss. The reaction of the man who praised him today was enough to explain everything. I know you're very good at this, so there won't be any problems. I'm worried about something else, Chu Luiwei said and rubbed her brows. Didn't you say that Jiang Yuqing had ordered to capture you at all costs? If they find out, the aura of the 13 U guards was special. Anyone who was familiar with them could easily recognize them. It was too dangerous for Qi Han to appear so openly in Xiling under Jiang Yuqing's nose. Your Highness, before I came, I hid my aura. If I stood in front of him, he might not be able to detect me. Qi Han's voice was as calm as usual, but he was confident. Chu Luiwei was dazed. She then realized that Qi Han's body had indeed changed. This change was very subtle, but he had completely got rid of his aura. If she had not been so familiar with Qi Han's eyes, she might not have been able to recognize him so quickly. How did you do it? Chu Luiwei sized him up and asked in shock. Every cultivator would have a different aura because of the martial arts they cultivated. Jiang Yuqing dared to order a full-scale capture of them and force them out of Heaven's canopy because of this. Previously, Chu Luiwei didn't let Qi Han accompany her to Xiling because she was worried about this problem. She didn't expect that. He seemed to be a completely different person now. Qi Han said, "Actually, little Hachi has been studying how to solve this problem for more than a year. Some time ago, he said that he came up with a new prescription that might work. This subordinate then went to look for him to find a medicinal pill, and, as a result, it really worked. Everyone in the 13 U guards was good at different things. For a little 8 to be able to do this, it wasn't strange if he thought about it carefully." Chu Luiwei pondered for a moment and asked, "Are you sure this thing will always work?" Qi Han nodded and said, "Little Hachi thought I was just giving it a try. He doesn't know that I've already found you and come to Xiling. If he knew, he would definitely come over immediately. You did well. Now is indeed not a good time to tell them." Chu Luiwei crossed his arms and pondered for a long time before saying, "Since you're already here, you might as well stay. It's easier to do things with Qin Chi's identity." The 7 colds all agreed. Chu Luiwei's heart calmed down a little as she sat down. He asked casually, "How's the situation in country Yaochun?" Qi Han's expression turned solemn. "Your Highness, everything is fine in the Imperial capital. However, Taiyan Academy was ambushed half a month ago and suffered heavy casualties. Now, many students have been dismissed and have gone to other academies." Chu Luiwei was really shocked this time. He suddenly looked up at Qi Han. "How did this happen?" Taiyan Academy was the top academy in country Xing Luo. No one dared to offend it. How did it get ambushed and become like this overnight? Qi Han shook his head. Country Xing Luo has kept this matter under wraps. There's almost no news. They've been investigating the mastermind, but it seems like they haven't found any useful clues. Chu Luiwei suddenly thought of something and asked, "How's the investigation on Yang Jianxing and Heng Jingchua?" Qi Han shook his head. "After such a thing happened, everyone is in danger. The investigation has been forced to stop." Chu Luiwei's heart sank. Indeed, someone wanted to stop the investigation. However, she was in Xiling now, so she couldn't find out more. After that, she asked a few more questions and let Qi Han go back. If he stayed here for too long, it would inevitably attract attention. After sending Qi Han back, Chu Luiwei returned to the Chongshu Pavilion. However, as soon as he reached the top of the mountain, he saw Yi Ran running over. Her eyes were bright, and she said excitedly, "Lu Yu, you have a friend looking for you." Chu Luiwei was stunned. Friend? She didn't have many friends in Xiling. Who could be looking for her? Chu Luiwei asked, "Who is it?" Jian Fengxi? Yi Ran shook his head vigorously. No, we've never seen him before. He's been here for a while. He's waiting for you." Chu Luiwei walked forward in confusion. Digression. Massive updates, another wave at noon. Guess how many more there are today? Finally, I waved my hand and beckoned for monthly votes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 613. Chu Luiwei returned to her residence and met many senior brothers and sisters on the way. Everyone looked at her strangely, as if they were curious and excited at the same time. Little junior sister, you're back. Little junior sister, someone is looking for you. Seeing everyone's reaction, Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows slightly. This scene was very similar to when Yin Qing came last time. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone was busy preparing for the great sect meeting, it would be even more enthusiastic than the last time. Chu Luiwei greeted them one by one and walked to her door under everyone's burning gazes. The door was open. She walked in. There were 3 men in the room. Yin Qing, who she had just met a few days ago, was standing respectfully with his hands by his side. Chang Wanzhou stood in the middle of the room with his back straight. At this moment, he was staring coldly at the man standing beside the bookshelf. The atmosphere was cold. Chu Luiwei looked over. It was a tall and slender figure. His clothes were whiter than snow, and his sleeves fluttered in the wind. Although it was only his back view, she could still feel the cold and noble aura around him. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. Her eyes widened slightly, and her heart started to beat rapidly. Rongxiu? Hearing the voice, Rongxiu turned around, and his thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. There was a faint and gentle smile on his jade-like face. His pair of phoenix eyes were as deep as the starry night. They were enshrouded in a faint light that made one unconsciously sink into them. It's really him. Chu Luiwei was surprised and happy. She almost couldn't believe her eyes. Why are you here? Didn't he return to Mingwei Tianshan? In the blink of an eye, he actually appeared in front of her. So the friend that you Ranran mentioned just now was him? No wonder the senior brothers and sisters revealed such gossipy and curious expressions. Such a monstrous figure would become the focus of everyone's attention no matter where he was. Rongxiu put down the book in his hand and smiled faintly. I've been busy with something recently and happened to pass by here, so I thought I'd come and see you. Confusion flashed across Chu Luiwei's heart. What was Rongxiu busy with that he would pass by the West Hill? However, this thought only flashed through his mind for a moment before it was quickly replaced by the joy of reunion. The two of them had only been apart for less than a month, but she felt like a long time had passed. The longing that had been suppressed in the deepest part of his heart seemed to have been torn open and surged out. Rongxiu saw that there seemed to be a twinkle in her eyes. His heart moved, and he walked towards Chu Luiwei. He stood still in front of Chu Luiwei, looked down, and scrutinized her face. Then, he wrapped his arm around her slender waist and pulled her into his arms. Chang Wanzhou's face turned cold. Just as he was about to step forward, he sensed a dangerous gaze from the side. He looked up. Yin Qing raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at him with undisguised warning in her eyes. What a joke. His master had chased him all the way to the West Hill. It was not easy for him to see the person he cared about the most. Who would dare to stop him at this time? Master, I'll take my leave. Yin Qing bowed respectfully and then walked out. When she passed by Chang Wanzhou, she paused and raised her chin. Chang Wanzhou, right? I heard that you have good strength. Why don't we go out and have a competition? Chang Wanzhou glanced at him coldly, but he did not move. The man in white said that he was Chu Luiwei's friend. However, when he saw Yin Qing, Chang Wanzhou realized that this man should be the one who gave him the interspatial ring. Obviously, he had a special relationship with Chu Luiwei. Yin Qing closed her eyes. Why were the children nowadays so insensible? Without saying anything, she directly clamped Chang Wanzhou's arm and dragged him out. Chang Wanzhou immediately wanted to resist, but he found that he could not get rid of Yin Qing's hand at all. He was no match for Yin Qing at all. In this way, Yin Qing directly took him out, leaving him no time to refute. Before leaving, Yin Qing considerately closed the door. Chu Luiwei put her arms around Rongxiu's thin waist and pressed her face against his chest. She could clearly hear the rhythm of his heartbeat. The sound seemed to be transmitted from her eardrums to her heart. Again and again, the familiar cold fragrance lingered at the tip of her nose. The place where they hugged was warm and ironed. Somewhere in the bottom of her heart seemed to be filled in an instant. It was not until she heard the sound of the door closing that she raised her head and took a look. Why does Yanqing suddenly want to compete with Xiao Zhou? Rongxiu's long eyelashes moved slightly. Xiao Zhou. Chu Luiwei raised her head and looked at him. Yes, the child with short blonde hair just now, Chongwan Zhou. Rongxiu hugged her tighter, and their bodies were tightly pressed against each other. He leaned close to her ear as if he was bewitching her. Don't think about unrelated people. Now. Only me. Immediately, he lowered his head, and his crimson lips fell between Chu Liyue's eyebrows. The slightly cold temperature made Chu Liyue's body tremble slightly. Then he gradually moved down, and his kisses covered the sky and the earth. Her eyebrows, the corners of her eyes, the tip of her nose, her cheeks, his movements were very light, but they were filled with forbearance and a strong longing for her. He loved and cherished her to the extreme, as if he was treating the most precious existence in the world. Wherever it passed, it seemed to roll up sparks, scorching and scalding. Finally, he kissed her lips. Her legs were weak, so she had to hold him tighter. Her fingers, which were grabbing his clothes, curled slightly and rubbed several creases on his clothes. Warm breaths intertwined, and she was dizzy as if she had lost her direction. Chu Luiwei let out a soft moan between her lips and teeth. It was an extremely unpleasant sound of tenderness and softness. Rongxiu's heart seemed to be burned by something, and then he finally let her go. He held her waist with one hand and gently stroked her long hair with the other. Chu Luiwei looked up at him. Her eyes seemed to be full of autumn water, and her cheeks were flushed. Rongxiu's fingertips unconsciously rubbed her waist, and then he kissed her eyes. His voice was low and hoarse, like an order, but also like a desire. Don't look at me like that. In front of her, the self-control that he was so proud of crumbled bit by bit. Chapter 614. Chu Lua blinked. Seeing the bottomless abyss in his eyes, she tactfully stopped teasing him. Rongxiu exhaled softly. He missed her when he couldn't see her, but when he saw her, his longing didn't ease at all. Instead, it became even stronger. Even if she was right in front of him, he still missed her. He sat down and pulled Chu Luiwei into his arms. He hugged her from behind and gently rested his chin on her shoulder. Chu Luiwei looked at him sideways. After not seeing him for a while, he seemed to have lost some weight. What has he been busy with recently? Rongxiu, how long do you plan to stay in West Hill this time? Chu Luiwei played with his slender and fair hand and asked. Rongxiu thought for a moment. His voice was still a little lazy and hoarse. Undecided? Chu Luiwei was a little puzzled. Just as she was about to continue asking, Rongxiu took the initiative to speak. That Chongwan Zhou, I haven't seen him before. It seems that he thinks highly of you. Chu Luiwei asked. Why do you say that? Rongxiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly. When he heard that I was here to look for you, he acted as if he was facing a great enemy, from the beginning until you came back. If it weren't for Yanqing just now, he would have continued to stay. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but laugh. Although a certain someone looked calm and collected, but it was so sour. He's my follower now, so naturally, he's especially concerned about my affairs. That child is stubborn. You don't have to take it to heart. Chu Luiwei said and kissed the corner of his lips. He knew you before, so of course he was very wary of you. But from now on, he knows your identity, so naturally, he won't be like that anymore. Rongxiu looked up with a faint smile. Oh, who am I? Chu Luiwei looked at his expression and suddenly felt a little guilty. Oh, it's your fiancé. Rongxiu's smile deepened. Really? But after I came to West Hill, I seem to have heard some rumors. Chu Luiwei thought to himself that this was indeed the case. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You said it yourself. It's all just rumors. I don't even know how the outside world got into such a state. One moment it was Jian Fengxi, the next it was Mu Qinghe. After she heard it, she actually didn't take it to heart at all, because it was too ridiculous. However, from the looks of it, a certain someone seemed to mind. She turned around and teased with a smile. If you don't like it, I'll clarify it later. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows seemed to carry a bit of undisciplined nobility. No need. Chu Luiwei was surprised. Rong Xiu was clearly very concerned about this matter. It wouldn't take much effort for her to clarify it. Why did he say that there was no need? Rong Xiu paused, and his thin lips curled slightly. I have my own plans. He was indeed concerned about this matter, but he was also very clear about her current situation in West Hill. On the surface, she was famous and had limitless prospects. But in reality, she had also attracted a lot of jealousy and hatred. There were countless pairs of eyes staring at her in the dark now. The slightest movement might attract a wave of unnecessary trouble. Moreover, her status in West Hill now was actually not high. If she were to do such a thing, it would instead seem like she was taking the initiative to scam him. He couldn't bear to do it no matter what. So it was better for him to do these things. Chu Luiwei didn't know what he was thinking, but seeing his lazy expression, she didn't continue to dwell on this matter. She then talked about some things that happened after she came to West Hill. Rong Xiu listened patiently and gently. In fact, he already knew about these things. But now that he heard her say it personally, it was a completely different feeling. It was as if every word suddenly had warmth and power, leaving deep and shallow marks in his heart. He listened patiently and occasionally asked a few questions. One of them was talking with great interest, while the other was listening with great interest. For a moment, it was quite interesting. After a long time, after she finished talking about these things, Chu Luiwei suddenly thought of something and asked, I've always been talking about my matters. Why don't you talk about yours? Is there anything interesting? Rong Xiu smiled faintly and said, My side is as usual. Without you, there's nothing interesting. It's fine now to talk about it. Chu Luiwei's chest warmed. Did he mean only things related to her were interesting to him? This person, oh, there's one thing that's a little difficult. Rong Xiu frowned slightly and seemed to be in a difficult position. What is it? I came to West Hill in a hurry this time and haven't found a suitable place to stay. Because I don't know how long I'll have to stay here, it's a little troublesome. Rong Xiu rubbed his eyebrows and seemed to be worried about it. Chu Luiwei almost didn't think and immediately said, Then you can live in my house. The one I told you about before, the one that the pavilion master gave me. Although it's not big, it's definitely enough for you to live in. It's just that the house is relatively simple. I don't know if you're used to living there. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a loving smile. Of course, I'm used to living in your place. Then thank you in advance, you are. Outside the courtyard, Yanqing and Chang Wanzhou stood facing each other. Chang Wanzhou's clothes were torn, and his hair was very messy. His breathing was heavy, and it was obvious that he had just experienced a difficult battle. On the other hand, Yanqing's face wasn't red, and he wasn't out of breath. He was calm and composed. Boy, you're talented, but now you're still a little inexperienced. Yanqing crossed his arms and looked down at him condescendingly. Chang Wanzhou was silent for a moment before he said, One day, I'll beat you. Yanqing didn't get angry at being provoked. Instead, he nodded with interest. That depends on whether you have the strength and luck. After the battle, even if he didn't like Chang Wanzhou before, he had to admit that this young man did indeed have top talent. As long as he was trained well, he would definitely become a strong person in the future. Such a person indeed has the right to be Ms. Liu Yue's right-hand man if he follows her. But, Master, at this moment, the door suddenly opened. Chu Luiwei and Rong Xiu walked out. Yanqing and Chang Wanzhou immediately looked over. Master, Miss Liu Yu. Yanqing bowed respectfully. Chang Wanzhou's eyes swept over the two of them and finally fell on their clasped hands. Chu Luiwei waved at Chang Wanzhou. Little Zhou, come here. Chang Wanzhou walked to her obediently. Chu Luiwei coughed. Rong Xiu is my fiancé. You don't have to be so wary of him in the future. If he comes again in the future, just invite him in. Chang Wanzhou didn't say anything. Little Zhou. Chu Luiwei raised her voice. Chang Wanzhou finally straightened his neck and said coldly, Got it. Chu Luiwei breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. In fact, she also knew that Chang Wanzhou was doing it for her own good. However, he was unsociable and unruly, so it was inevitable that some misunderstandings would occur. These could only be taught slowly in the future. By the way, Rongxiu will be staying in my house in Shilling City during this period of time. I'll take him to have a look first. As Chu Liwei spoke, she planned to leave with Rongxiu. Chang Wanzhou hesitated for a moment and didn't follow. Instead, he looked at the sky and turned to return to his room. After a while, he walked out and walked towards Chu Liyue's room. Yin Qing's heart skipped a beat and immediately became alert. However, the next moment, when he saw the situation in front of him, his expression froze for a moment. Chang Wanzhou was holding a rag. Chapter 615. Yin Qing rubbed her eyes and looked at it a few times to confirm that she was not seeing wrongly. That was indeed a rag. After a while, Chang Wanzhou carried another bucket of water in and did not come out again. This, Yin Qing pointed in that direction in shock. Miss Lu Yu, he is. Chu Liwei glanced at it and waved her hand indifferently. It's fine. He has to clean this place every day at this time. After cleaning up, he will naturally go back. At first, she refused. This was because Chang Wanzhou cleaned up very cleanly every time. There was really no need to do this every day. Actually, she had tried to persuade him before, but it was useless. In Chang Wanzhou's understanding, this was what he should do, so he was diligent and serious every time. If she did not let him clean, he would even question Chu Liwei if she thought that he did not do well. After a few times, Chu Liwei simply gave up and let him be. Yin Qing, what was wrong with him? On the other side, the moment Rongxiu came out, he sensed several gazes in the dark around him. His brows twitched slightly, and he held Chu Liue's hand even tighter. Let's go. Chu Liwei retracted her gaze and nodded. However, before she could take 2 steps, she stopped again and sighed helplessly. Senior brothers and senior sisters, please come out. As soon as she finished speaking, the surroundings fell silent for a moment. Then, a group of people surged out from the room beside them, as well as from all corners. Lu Jiao, who was standing in front, laughed and scratched the back of his head. What a coincidence, haha. This is Rongxiu. Chu Liwei spoke straightforwardly. Lu Jiao's voice stopped abruptly. He coughed awkwardly and quickly exchanged glances with everyone. He originally wanted to explain to little junior sister, but little junior sister's eyesight was too good. However, Chu Liue's next sentence made everyone's eyes light up. He's also my fiancé. This simple and indifferent sentence was like a sudden clap of thunder that fell down. Everyone was curious about Rongxiu's identity. They didn't expect Chu Liwei to admit it so directly. So junior sister already has a fiancé? Haha. Since he's junior sister's fiancé, he's naturally half a member of the Chongshu Pavilion. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Don't stand on ceremony. Little junior sister, you never told me that you have such an outstanding fiancé. Everyone exclaimed in surprise and praised him. Needless to say, this man in white was the most outstanding person they had ever seen. Judging from his imposing manner, he did not seem to be an ordinary person. Most importantly, although he had concealed his aura, one could still feel a faint trace of pressure from him. His strength was definitely not weak. Such a person was indeed worthy of little junior sister. Chu Liwei knew that if she didn't say it today, her senior brothers and senior sisters would never forget this matter. So, she might as well be frank about Rongxiu's identity. Then, she introduced these people to Rongxiu one by one. Rongxiu had a smile on his face from beginning to end. He greeted everyone gently and politely. His speech and behavior were all the imposing manner of a noble son from an aristocratic family. Everyone's curiosity was finally satisfied, but they also had some faint doubts. Didn't they say that little junior sister's background was ordinary? But whether it was little junior sister or Rongxiu, they all looked very extraordinary. This noble aura that exuded from his bones was definitely not something that could be raised by an ordinary family. I came in a hurry today and didn't have time to prepare anything for senior brothers and senior sisters. I can only give you a small gift first. Thank you for taking care of you during this period of time. As he spoke, he raised his finger. Yin Qing. Yin Qing immediately went forward and walked to Yi Ranran to present something. Miss Yi, please accept it. Chu Luiwei glanced at it and realized that it was also a universe ring. However, it seemed to be just an ordinary universe ring. It was different from the one Rong Xiao gave her. Yi Ranran was flattered and looked at Lu Jiao and the others in a panic. This didn't seem appropriate, right? Lu Jiao immediately laughed. You're too polite. Lu Yu is our little junior sister. It's only right for us to treat her well. Logically speaking, we should be the ones giving you a greeting gift. Before he could finish speaking, Yin Qing had already placed the universe ring in Yi Ranran's hand. She walked in front of Lu Jiao and took out a second universe ring. Young Master Lu, please. Lu Jiao was stunned. He looked at the universe ring in Yi Ranran's hand, and then looked at the one in front of him. So each of them had one. Rong Xiao said, It's not valuable. It's nothing valuable. Please feel free to accept it. Since he had already said so much, it was not appropriate to refuse. Lu Jiao could only say, Then, thank you, little brother-in-law. The corners of Chu Liyue's eyes twitched violently. She suddenly had the urge to flee. Little brother-in-law. She quickly glanced at Rong Xiao, only to see his calm expression and a smile on his lips. Instead, he was quite satisfied with this address. Senior brother Lu, you're too polite. Is my fiancé. This is what I should do. Chu Liyue shuddered. Why did he call him senior brother? Rong Xiao, is this really appropriate? Chu Liyue silently pinched the back of Rong Xiao's hand. What exactly was he planning to do? It was just a simple introduction. Why did he make it seem like? In the face of Chu Liyue's silent accusation, Rong Xiao was indifferent. He held her hand and gently scratched her palm. Chu Liyue was speechless. Then, under her shocked gaze, Yin Qing quickly gave each of them a universe ring, and he did not address each of them wrongly. After that, Rong Xiao said again, I can't stay here today. I can't stay for long today, so I'll have to trouble Senior Marshal Brother Lu to transfer the gifts for the Pavilion Master, Elder Xia Yi, and the other senior brothers and sisters who didn't come today. After that, Yin Qing indeed gave him some more. Lu Jiao could only agree in a daze. Don't worry, little brother-in-law. I'll definitely give them all. Rong Xiao smiled. In that case, and I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye. After that, he left with Chu Liyue and Yin Qing. Everyone watched them leave the mountain in unison. They did not come back to their senses for a long time. What the? Suddenly, a cry of surprise broke out in the crowd. Everyone looked over and saw a man holding a universe ring with a shocked expression. This, Yi Ranran asked in puzzlement. What's wrong? The man swallowed his saliva with great difficulty. Little junior sister's fiancé seems to be extraordinarily rich. Digression, I seem to have an allergic reaction to food. I'll go get some medicine. I'll update from time to time in the afternoon. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 616. Chu Liyue and Rong Xiao walked all the way down the mountain. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, What did you put in the universe rings that you gave to senior brothers and sisters? Rong Xiao smiled faintly and said, Just some things that they can use. Chu Liyue pondered for a moment. White crystal coins. Rong Xiao smiled but didn't say anything. Chu Liyue thought to herself that it was indeed so. Giving white crystal coins was basically the most convenient and least likely gift. But why did you prepare so much? Could it be that before you came, you're now famous in West Hill, and Chongshu Pavilion is also one of the most important sections. It's not that difficult to find out some things. But you gave so much at once, it seems that they're good to you. It's only right to give them a small gift. Seeing that Rong Xiao spoke so casually, Chu Liyue finally couldn't help but tug at his sleeve. Rong Xiao, tell me honestly, where did you get so much money? If you give me all this money, what will you do? According to her understanding of Rong Xiao, Since he had given her money, it definitely wouldn't be a small amount. Not to mention the money that he gave her. Rongshio smiled and glanced at her. If you is worried that I don't have money, you don't have to. I can still afford it. Yin Qing followed behind, and the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. Miss Liu actually doubted Master's financial resources. Hearing Rongshio's words, Chu Luiyue was slightly relieved. In fact, she also knew that since Rongshio was so generous, he definitely didn't have to worry about money. She was just curious about how he did it. Could it be because of the identity of the Holy Sun? They arrived at the house in West Hill City. Chu Luiyue brought the two of them in and said, "Don't worry. I just moved here not long ago, so I basically just cleaned everything up. There are a few rooms you can take a look at and choose one that you like." Rongshio looked lazy. There's no need for such trouble. This room is excellent." Chu Luiyue turned around and followed his line of sight. "That's mine. You want to stay in my room?" Rongshio raised his eyebrows. "Weren't we the same in the past?" Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. In the past, it was always him who refused to leave. Seeing through Rongshio's thoughts, Chu Luiyue simply gave up struggling. "If you want, it's not impossible. I don't usually come back to this place often, so basically, no one will come to disturb me." Rongshio did not mind. If she didn't come, he could go. Chu Luiyue stayed with him for a while longer before finally leaving. Jiang residence. "Fourth young miss, this is the Bingji ointment that eldest young master specially asked for from the palace. It is said that as long as you use it consistently for half a month, any wound will not leave a scar." As the maidservant spoke, she carefully applied the ointment for Jiang Yuji. Jiang Yuji leaned against the bed with her eyes closed, not saying anything. The maidservant scooped out a spoonful and gently applied it on her face. "Issa!" A sharp pain like an icicle came, and Jiang Yuji cried out in pain. She sat up and slapped the maidservant with the back of her hand. "Slap! It hurts so much. What did you do?" The maidservant was slapped to the ground. A palm print quickly appeared on her face, and her arm was bleeding. However, she still carefully held the Bingji ointment in her hand, afraid that it would break. If this bottle of Bingji ointment was destroyed, she would not be able to pay for it with her life. This servant knows her mistake. She quickly got up and knelt beside Jiang Yuji's bed, kowtowing and admitting her mistake. Jiang Yuji looked at her irritably and snatched the Bingji ointment away. "Get lost." The maidservant retreated in panic. Yes. However, just as she was about to get up, Jiang Yuji glanced at her from the corner of her eye and saw her pale face hanging down. There were tears on her cheeks, and she looked pitiful. The anger in her heart burned even more. "Kneel outside. Slap yourself." He would only stop when his face started bleeding. The maidservant was startled. "Fourth miss, why aren't you going?" "Yes." The maidservant bit her lip and retreated. She knelt outside the door and began to slap herself. Every slap was very hard. The crisp sound of a slap was heard. Jiang Yuji finally calmed down a little. She opened the Bingji ointment and prepared to apply it herself. "What are you doing?" Before she could do anything, she heard Jiang Yuqing's voice from outside. "Eldest young master, this servant did something wrong. How can you behave like this at fourth miss's door? You can leave first." "Thank you, eldest young master. This servant will take her leave." Then, Jiang Yuqing walked in. "This is already the fifth servant you've taught a lesson to in the past few days. When are you going to stop?" Jiang Yuji put the Bingji ointment on the table with a bang, her expression ugly. "Big brother, did you come here today just to teach me a lesson? I'm the fourth miss of the Jiang family. Is it wrong to discipline a few servants?" Jiang Yuqing snorted. "Don't think that I don't know. These maidservants didn't do anything wrong. You're the one who kept holding on to them. It's precisely because you're the master that you have to pay attention. If word gets out, others will only say that you're domineering, spoiled, and willful." Jiang Yuji suddenly stood up and quickly walked in front of Jiang Yuqing. "My face is already like this. Don't tell me you won't allow me to vent." Jiang Yuqing's expression was cold. "Let's not talk about this first." I've already sent someone to investigate what happened that day. Jiang Yuji's hair stood on end under his gaze. She couldn't help but take half a step back. Big brother, did you find out something? Jiang Yuqing sneered. Aren't you the clearest about what happened that day? I've asked you for so long, but you've never said that you caused such a ruckus at 100 Herbs Building. Jiang Yuji immediately felt guilty. I didn't do anything. If you didn't do anything, why would 100 Herbs Building blacklist you and threaten to stop doing business with you? When this incident happened, many people saw it. It was easy to find out by asking around. Jiang Yuji was speechless for a moment. So what? If he doesn't want to do it, so be it. It's not like this is the only shop in Shilling City that sells herbs. Do they really dare to do anything to me? Seeing that she was still so stubborn, Jiang Yuqing was extremely disappointed. Things had already come to this point, yet she was still so naive, childish, and self-righteous. 100 Herbs Building has a deep foundation and a powerful background. Even I don't want to face them head-on. Why are you so bold? Do you really think that you're so great as the Jiang family's fourth miss? Jiang Yuji's expression changed. Big brother's words were too harsh. But before she could speak, Jiang Yuqing continued. No wonder you were followed and beaten up not long after you left. And you still say that you didn't offend anyone? Jiang Yuji finally reacted. Big brother, you mean that masked man is from 100 Herbs Building? Digression. Due to sensitive words and other issues, Chapter 613 is in the process of being revised. Everyone, please be patient. Chapter 617. We can't be sure yet, but there aren't many people who would dare to attack you so blatantly. Jiang Yuji couldn't care less about her grievances and anger. She hurriedly said, Since we know it's them, then go and arrest them. How can it be that easy? Jiang Yuqing frowned and walked to the side. There's no evidence to prove that they did it. How can we arrest them casually? Besides, you didn't even see that person's face. Who can we arrest? Jiang Yuji was stunned. Then go and investigate. Brother, don't you have a few capable subordinates? The other party dared to be so brazen, which means that they aren't afraid of investigation. Besides, the 100 Herbs Building is quite famous in West Hill. How can we investigate just because we want to? That was the largest medicinal herb store in West Hill. Even he had to think twice before making a move. Jiang Yuji reacted for a while and asked in disbelief, Then is this matter over? I was beaten up for nothing? Jiang Yuqing was silent for a moment and asked, I heard that it was Yu Ling who personally ordered someone to invite you out that day. I've seen him a few times before. This person is shrewd and sophisticated. If it weren't for special circumstances, he wouldn't have been so ruthless. Besides, he knew your identity, but still insisted on doing so. It shows how serious the matter is. What did you do that day? Jiang Yuji gritted her teeth and hesitated for a while before saying, I just scolded Chu Luiyue a little. Jiang Yuqing's expression froze. Seeing that she couldn't hide it anymore, Jiang Yuji could only tell Jiang Yuqing everything that happened that day. If they hadn't refused to give me those medicinal herbs, I wouldn't have done that. In the end, it was all Chu Luiyue's fault. After hearing this, Jiang Yuqing's face darkened. She really went to find trouble with Chu Luiyue. More importantly, she went to the 100 Herbs Building. Even if she went to find Chu Luiyue for a one-on-one fight, it would be better than this. You've forgotten what I told you before, haven't you? Jiang Yuqing's voice was as cold as ice. Jiang Yuji shuddered. Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration and hurriedly said, That's not right. Brother, this isn't right. I scolded Chu Luiyue that day, but I didn't say anything bad about the 100 Herbs Building. But when that Yu Ling heard me scolding Chu Luiyue, he seemed to be angry in an instant. As she spoke, she thought back. The more she thought about it, the more certain she became. That's right. That's it. Previously, when I was buying medicinal herbs, Yu Ling said that they were all prepared for Chu Luiyue and could not be sold to me. When I was talking about this, he was still fine. I remember now. Previously, a few women seemed to have been chased out of 100 Herbs Building because they criticized Chu Luiyue. Not only them, but even her family clans were implicated. Later on, They even want to make a fuss, but nothing was done in the end. As Jiang Yuqing listened, his expression gradually became serious. You mean that Chu Luiwei has something to do with the 100 Herbs building? That must be it. Yuling also said that because Chu Luiwei was a VIP with a black gold card, Chu Luiwei was not the only customer of the 100 Herbs building. Why didn't such a thing happen before? There was clearly something fishy about this. Jiang Yuqing thought for a moment and hesitated. But didn't Chu Luiwei just come to West Hill? And she was brought here by Mu Qinghe and Jian Fengqi. How could she be related to the 100 Herbs building in such a short time? He paused for a moment, then got up and left. I will investigate this matter personally. During this period, you stay here and don't be willful. Got it. After Chu Luiwei left, she went to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Dragon Teeth Mountain was much bigger than Chong's Su cabinet, and it was also much more lively. When Chu Luiwei arrived at the hall, she saw Jian Fengqi waiting inside. She quickly looked around, but did not see Mu Hongyu. Jian Fengqi said lazily, Hongyu has become my father's disciple and is still cultivating in the Tianya cave. I have already sent someone to invite her, but it will probably take a while. Sit down and wait. Chu Luiwei smiled and took out a letter. Since Hongyu is busy cultivating, I won't disturb her. This is a letter from her Imperial father. I'll have to trouble young Master Jian to pass it to her when you return. With that, she walked over and prepared to leave after putting the letter on the table beside Jian Fengqi. Suddenly, a familiar fragrance wafted over. Chu Luiwei sniffed and realized that the smell came from Jian Fengqi. A dark look flashed across her eyes. This ambergris was specially provided by her palace. To be precise, only she and her father used to be able to use it. Although the smell on Jian Fengqi's body was very faint, she was sure that it was the smell left behind by the ambergris. Moreover, the fact that the smell lingered in the air meant that Jian Fengqi had stayed at the place where the ambergris was burned for at least 2 hours. She paused and put the letter on the table. She asked casually, How is Hongyu doing in Dragon Teeth Mountain these days? Jian Fengqi waved his bone fan. I take care of her every day. Of course she's doing well. Chu Luiwei looked at him in surprise. Have you been taking care of Hongyu in Dragon Teeth Mountain these days? Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows. Of course. I was the one who treated her injuries. She's almost healed now. The medicine I used is much better than what you used before. Chu Luiwei was now a 4th-grade celestial physician. Jian Fengqi's level was higher, so the medicine he refined was naturally better. I see. Thank you, young Master Jian. Chu Luiwei smiled slightly. Suddenly, her expression changed. What kind of fragrance is this? Jian Fengqi froze. Chu Luiwei sniffed. Young Master Jian, do you smell a faint fragrance? Jian Fengqi looked at Chu Luiwei warily. A cold light flashed in his icy eyes. Oh, my mother often fiddles with some spices. Maybe it's this smell? Chu Luiwei nodded in understanding. Then, he said with admiration, the Mountain Lord is really amazing. The Mountain Chieftain's wife is really amazing. This fragrance is even better than the average fragrance. I just don't know how she made it. Jian Fengqi heaved a sigh of relief and looked down. It's just a normal fragrance. Lu Yu. A shout of surprise came from outside. Chu Luiwei looked back and saw Mu Hongyu walking towards him with a face full of excitement and joy. Lu Yu, you came to see me? Chu Luiwei smiled, took the letter, and handed it over. This is a letter from your father. Mu Hongyu exclaimed and hurriedly opened the letter. Jian Fengqi looked at the two of them and slowly leaned back in his chair. He was too careless. He came back in a hurry and forgot to change his clothes. Chu Luiwei shouldn't be able to recognize the fragrance, right? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 618. Mu Hongyu read the letter carefully several times. Her eyes were slightly red. Chu Luiwei patted her shoulder gently. Hongyu, are you okay? I'm fine. Father and mother know that I'm not only alive, but also cultivating in West Hill. They are overjoyed. They told me to cultivate well. In this world, there is probably nothing more rejoicing than regaining something you had lost. Mu Hongyu handed the letter to Chu Luiyue. Luiyue, look, my father and mother are saying that they want to thank you. Chu Luiyue took the letter and looked at it. A smile bloomed on his face. Yes, they can be completely relieved now. Jin Fengqi coughed. Mu Hongyu immediately said, "Oh right, young master, my father and mother have specially thanked you." Jin Fengqi leaned lazily on the chair. He smiled slightly and said as if he didn't care, "It's nothing. What's there to thank me for?" Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Puffed. If he really didn't care, why did he cough just now? Hongyu, why did you call young master Jin young master? Mu Hongyu explained, "Oh, because everyone on Dragon Teeth Mountain calls him that." If she kept calling him young master Jian, it would feel a little weird. Therefore, she simply followed suit and shouted the same thing. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Now that Mu Hongyu was Jian Shai's disciple, she had officially joined Dragon Teeth Mountain. She might stay here for a long time in the future. It was a good thing to quickly integrate into everyone. Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "It seems that you're doing well on Dragon Teeth Mountain." Mu Hongyu smiled brightly. Her almond-shaped eyes were bright. "Yes, the Mountain Master and the others treat me very well, and my cultivation speed now seems to be much faster than before. The Mountain Master said that it's because of my physique. After a while, I should be able to continue breaking through." In the past, her talent was considered outstanding in country Yao Chun, but it wasn't considered top-notch, let alone outside. Now that she possessed the faint essence body, the difference was like heaven and earth compared to before. Even in the entire Tianling dynasty, she could be considered one of the most outstanding geniuses. Chu Luiyue was happy to see her happy. "Since that's the case, I'm relieved. Since the letter has been delivered, I will take my leave first." Mu Hongyu was very reluctant to part with him. "I've just arrived, and you're leaving already? Then I'll send you off." Chu Luiyue had an idea. Sure. The two of them left together. The casual smile on Jin Fengqi's face gradually disappeared. He frowned, got up, and quickly returned to his room. After returning, he quickly changed his clothes. With a spark from his fingertips, the clothes immediately burned. Even when the clothes were completely burned, he still felt that something was wrong. "Men, I want to take a bath." On the other side, Mu Hongyu accompanied Chu Luiyue for a long walk. Along the way, the two of them talked about their recent events. Seeing that they were about to reach the foot of the mountain, Chu Luiyue asked casually, "Hongyu, has young Master Jian been on Dragon Teeth Mountain for the past few days?" "Yes. I have to go to his place to get pills every day." Mu Hongyu asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue shook his head. "Nothing. I just didn't expect him to be so patient." Speaking of this, Mu Hongyu laughed. "Actually, he has no choice. The Mountain Master said that he was too unrestrained some time ago and asked him to stay on Dragon Teeth Mountain and cultivate properly. I heard that the Mountain Master specially found many medical books, and he's been reading them for the past few days." Medical books? There are many celestial physician practitioners on Dragon Teeth Mountain, so there should be many medical books, right? The Mountain Master even specially found medical books for him to read? Mu Hongyu thought for a moment and said, "Yes. It seems to be some unique books or something. Anyway, it's quite impressive." Chu Luiyue lowered his eyes. Medical books? Jin Fengqi was very talented in celestial physician, and he had been studying diligently for so many years. He had read countless medical books. Now, he was looking at unique books. "Luyu? Luyu?" Seeing that Chu Luiyue did not respond, Mu Hongyu called out to her twice. "What are you thinking about?" Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and smiled. "Nothing. I was just thinking that since young Master Jian is so diligent, I have to work harder. Go back and cultivate well. We'll see you at the sect meeting." Mu Hongyu nodded seriously, unable to hide the excitement on her face. Okay. When Chu Luiyue returned to the Chongshu Pavilion, night had already fallen. On the way, she met several senior brothers and sisters, who all came up to her and praised her, saying that she had good taste. They also told her to get along well with Rongxiu and strive to get married as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue was at a loss at first, but then she realized that Rongxiu's bribe policy had worked. She did not know how many people were in the interspatial ring. Chu Liwei agreed one by one and finally returned to her room. Chang Wanzhou had already cleaned the room as usual, but he was not there. After a simple tidying up, Chu Liwei went to the Yanlin Peak again. In the quiet forest, only the sound of the sword rubbing against the star stone was particularly clear. Following her movements, the sparks that were produced every time she polished the sword also gradually changed from the initial orange-yellow to a faint blue. When the color of the sparks was the same as the color of the fetal heart that was polished on the sword tip, Chu Liwei finally changed to the other side and began to repeat the previous steps. After a period of time, Chu Liwei was like before. During the day, she cultivated on Qingyuan Mountain and took care of the herbs. At night, she would be sharpening the sword on Yanlin Peak. Rongxiu seemed to be busy as well. He only came to see her once and left very quickly. Chu Liwei did not ask any more questions and focused on the cloud sky copper sword. A month's time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the sect meeting. Digression. Also, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 619. The sky was clear and there were no clouds in the sky. Early in the morning, many people in Shilling City headed towards Square Stream. That was where the sect meeting was being held. The so-called Square Stream was located in the wilderness southwest of Shilling City. A few hundred years ago, the location of the Square Stream was still a mountain range. Later on, two powerhouses fought for 3 days and 3 nights, raising all the nearby mountains to the ground and leaving a cross-shaped gully on the vast ground. The gully was deep and gradually widened with the passage of time. Now, it had become 2 intersecting deep rifts. The sect meeting was held here every year. This year was no exception. However, the Great Sect Assembly this time was obviously very different from the past, because everyone knew very well that the ranking of the sects in Shilling City was very likely to change greatly this time. It was still early, but Square Stream was already crowded with people and was very lively. I heard that the 9-Star Alliance plans to challenge the Chongshu Pavilion this time. If they succeed, the title of Chongshu Pavilion as one of the 4 major sects will fall on the head of the 9-Star Alliance. I heard that the Sacred Flame Palace also has this plan. Which one of the sects below them isn't eager to make a move? The Chongshu Pavilion now doesn't live up to its name and is no longer qualified to continue occupying this position. Isn't it just a matter of time before it is replaced? Didn't they say that Yuchi Song recruited 2 good seedlings this time? Maybe. You mean that Chu Liwei and Chang Wanzhou? The 2 of them are not bad, but I think it's impossible for them to turn the situation around with just the 2 of them. I wonder which sect will be able to take down the Chongshu Pavilion this time. As time passed, the sun gradually rose. People from the major sects also came one after another. According to the previous rules, besides the 4 major sects, there were 4 more places to participate in the competition. The major sects in Shilling City had already gone through a fierce competition. Only the top 4 winners were qualified to come. They were the 9-Star Alliance, the Sacred Flame Palace, the Destiny Manor, and the Lingyun sect. Without a doubt, the leaders of the various sects had all appeared here today. A portion of the sect's elders and disciples had also come along. Most of the young disciples had the arrogance and pride of geniuses on their faces. Their eyes were filled with excitement and eagerness, as if they had a card up their sleeves. This was because not every disciple of the 4 great sects was qualified to come here. Those who could come here were all top-notch existences in their respective sections. The people from the various sects arrived one after another and exchanged pleasantries with each other. However, their eyes would look to the side from time to time. It was as if they were absent-minded. Many people were discussing this in private. Now that all the major sects are here, only the Chongshu Pavilion is left. Why haven't they come yet? Don't tell me they got stage fright and decided not to come. I heard that there are only a few dozen disciples left in the Chongshu Pavilion. They can't even hold up the stage. There's only 15 minutes left before the start of the competition. If they don't arrive on time, they'll automatically give up. The leader of the Nine-Star Alliance, Zhang Hua, laughed and joked. If the Chongshu Pavilion really doesn't come this time, wouldn't it be considered as giving up the position of one of the four great sects? As soon as he finished speaking, a deep and powerful voice came from midair. Even if this old man gives up this position, some people may not be able to take it. The originally noisy crowd instantly quieted down, and everyone looked up in unison. They saw several figures rushing over from midair. The one in front was Yuchi Song. Who was he? It was the Chongshu Pavilion. Under the gaze of countless people, Yuchi Song arrived with his disciples. As soon as he landed, Yuchi Song glanced at Zhang Hua and said calmly, "This old man was just delayed on the way, and someone seems to be eager to take my position in the Chongshu Pavilion." Zhang Hua choked and sneered. Strength is respect. If you don't have the ability to protect something, do you blame others for being too strong? The two of them were at each other's throats as soon as they met. The atmosphere instantly froze. Many people looked at each other. It seemed that the Nine-Star Alliance was determined to win this time. They actually went against the Chongshu Pavilion directly. If they didn't have enough confidence, no one would have fallen out so thoroughly. Yuchi Song remained motionless. That depends on whether you have the ability or not. It's not too late to talk about some things after you win. Otherwise, you'll just be a laughing stock. Zhang Hua waved his sleeves angrily. Stubborn duck. I'd like to see who will be the one to make a fool of themselves today. Seeing that the two sides were getting more and more tense, Jian Shai came out to smooth things over. Old Song, you came at the right time. It's time. Shall we start now? Zhang Hua and Yuchi Song both had to give Jian Shai face, so they finally stopped arguing. Jian Shai said, "Just like before, the Nine-Star Alliance and the other four sects will each choose one of the four great sects to challenge. The four winners will be ranked as the four great sects again." As he spoke, he looked at Zhang Hua and the others in front of him. "I wonder if you've already decided which one to challenge." The few of them didn't say anything. Jian Shai's eyelids twitched. Then Zhang Hua glanced at Yuchi Song and sneered, "Unfortunately, all four of us want to challenge the Chongshu Pavilion. None of us are willing to back down, so we haven't decided yet." His tone was full of ridicule, and he didn't hide his contempt for the Chongshu Pavilion. The surroundings were silent for a moment. It was obvious why these four sects chose the Chongshu Pavilion. It could be seen how down and out the Chongshu Pavilion was. The current situation was really ugly, especially for the Chongshu Pavilion. It was simply a great humiliation. However, to everyone's surprise, Yuchi Song's face was still calm, as if he didn't take this matter to heart. Even the disciples standing behind him had calm expressions on their faces. Jian Shai looked at Yuchi Song awkwardly. "Old Song, I can only leave this to you. Which one do you choose?" Having this kind of choice was definitely not something to be happy about. Yuchi Song raised his hand and pointed at Zhang Hua. The Nine-Star Alliance. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Even Zhang Hua was a little skeptical. Jian Shai frowned. "Are you sure?" These four sects seemed to be of similar strength, but in fact the Nine-Star Alliance was the strongest among them. This was not a good choice for the current Chongshu Pavilion. Yuchi Song nodded. "I'm sure." Others were about to ride on their heads. If they didn't fight back, the world would really think that the Chongshu Pavilion was easy to bully. Zhang Hua laughed and licked his lips, revealing a smug and arrogant smile. "Good. Today, the Nine-Star Alliance will see how strong the Chongshu Pavilion is." Digression. There's one more thing, but it's already very late. It's the same if you read it tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 620. The people from the other sects looked disappointed. Other than the Chongshu Pavilion, the other three sects were all powerful. The chances of them winning were very small. Other than secretly envying the Nine-Star Alliance, there was nothing they could do. Soon, the remaining sects also began to compete in groups of two. Dragon Teeth Mountain versus Sacred Flame Palace.
Purple Shao Sword Sect versus Tianji Manor. Xianfeng Hall versus Lingyun Sect. The 8 sects were divided into 4 groups and landed in the 4 areas of the Cross Canyon. Although there was a deep canyon in between, the sects could still clearly see each other's battle situation. The onlookers could freely choose which sect they were interested in and go to the corresponding area to watch the battle. Without a doubt, the Chongshu Pavilion and the 9-Star Alliance had the most people. After everyone was in position, someone realized that something was wrong. Strange, did Chu Luiwei and Chang Wanzhou not come? Why didn't I see them among the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion? It seems so. The 2 of them really didn't come. It can't be. The Chongshu Pavilion doesn't have many capable disciples now. Now that they finally have 2 good seedlings, they actually didn't come? 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. The news that Chu Luiwei and Chang Wanzhou didn't come quickly spread among the crowd. Logically speaking, not all the disciples in a sect would come. This wasn't strange in itself. But the key was that Chu Luiwei and Chang Wanzhou were the first and second in the Wanzhong competition. There was no doubt about their strength. It was really strange that they didn't come. Hearing the discussions around him, Yi Ranran couldn't help but tug at Lu Jiao's sleeve and whisper, "Senior brother Lu, do you think Lu Yu and Wanzhou will still come?" Lu Jiao also lowered his voice. Didn't little junior brother say that he would wait for little junior sister to come together? They should come, right? Recently, junior sister has been going to Yanlin Peak. She seems to be sharpening her sword. The Yuan instruments they used were either bought, gifted to them by their elders, or obtained by chance. It was really rare to see him sharpen his own sword. Yi Ranran asked worriedly. Let's hope they come. The 9-Star Alliance has been eyeing us covetously. They definitely won't let go of this opportunity. It was obvious that the Jiuxing Alliance would definitely pull them down from the position of the 4 major sects at all costs during this great sect meeting. Lu Jiao glanced at the people from the 9-Star Alliance and snorted. If I remember correctly, the 2 people who made things difficult for you in Xianli Garden were disciples of the 9-Star Alliance? Yi Ranran nodded and raised her hand to point. It's that tall and skinny man in purple and that green-clothed woman beside him. Lu Jiao nodded. Don't worry, we'll definitely win this time. When the time came, he would definitely teach them a lesson. All sorts of discussions could be heard. The people from the Chongshu Pavilion and the 9-Star Alliance each occupied one side, leaving a large empty space in the middle. There were also quite a few people who were standing around to watch the show. Zhang Hua and Yu Qisong faced each other from afar, and the atmosphere was cold. The rules of the competition are the same as before. According to the celestial physician, Xian Master, and martial artist, the competition will be held separately. Each competition will send out 9 disciples. 1 point will be awarded for a win, 1 point will be deducted for a loss, and 0 points will be awarded for a draw. After all 27 people have finished competing, they will be judged according to their total points. The one with the highest points will win. Zhang Hua's gaze swept across the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion and sneered. Yu Qisong, can your Chongshu Pavilion still send out 27 disciples to participate in the competition? Who didn't know that the current Chongshu Pavilion had few talents? There were only a few dozen of them, other than a few who stayed behind to guard the Chongshu Pavilion. The rest were probably all here. Speaking of which, I have to envy you guys on behalf of my disciples. In our 9-Star Alliance, not to mention the right to participate in the competition, even if it's just a spot to watch the competition, everyone will fight until their heads bleed. It's not like your Chongshu Pavilion, where anyone can come as long as they're not short of arms or legs. Yu Qisong's gaze was extremely cold. It's better not to be too sure about some things. If you guys still lose to us despite having so many people here, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Enough nonsense. Let's begin. At the same time, at Yanlin Peak, on the smooth and tidy mountaintop, a huge black star stone lay across it. A slender woman in red was sitting cross-legged on it, sharpening a sword. She held the sword hilt with one hand and pressed the blade with the other, continuously sharpening it. From beginning to end, she only did that one movement, but every repetition was exactly the same as the previous one. Whether it was the movement, posture, or strength,
It was all precise without a trace of error. Every time she moved, sparks would appear at the spot where the sword and the star stone rubbed against each other. Her expression was solemn, and her eyes were fixed on the sword under her hand, as if she would never tire. In fact, she hadn't slept for a day and a night. Since the day before, she had already sensed that this half of the fetal heart was about to be polished out. In other words, as long as she completed the task here, she would be considered to have polished out the entire Quetzal bronze fetal heart. The color of the sparks was gradually changing. The blue color was increasing bit by bit, becoming thicker, and gradually approaching the deep color of the sword. After an unknown period of time, she moved again, and a faint blue flame appeared in front of her eyes. Chu Liyue's eyes suddenly lit up. Success! Taizu's voice immediately sounded in her ears. Girl, get ready. I'm going to trigger Tianlei. Digression, there's nothing today. It's going to be updated at noon tomorrow. Please browse for a better reading experience from AI Network. Chapter 621. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the wind howled. The entire world quickly darkened. The wind stirred the forest, and the leaves rustled. Chu Liyue stood up, held the sword hilt with both hands, and looked up. Her clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. Between heaven and earth, she was the most dazzling fiery color. Her gaze was fixed on the rolling black clouds. The next moment, an almost transparent figure appeared in front of her. It was Taizu. He stood in the air with one hand behind his back. Even though it was just a remnant consciousness, it was still graceful and majestic. His gaze swept past Chu Liyue and finally landed on the cloud sky copper sword, and he nodded with admiration. After nearly a month of polishing, the originally wide and heavy cloud sky copper sword had shrunk by one size. The outer layer of bronze had been completely polished, revealing the peacock blue fetus heart inside. Even under the gloomy sky, it was still deep and pure, glowing faintly. Lass, whether the sword is successfully forged or not depends on this. Chu Liyue's body tensed up, and she nodded with a grave expression. Taizu, please. The next moment, Taizu took a step forward, and his figure shot toward the sky like an arrow. A powerful pressure suddenly surged out from his body. Above the clouds, countless amounts of heaven and earth energy were crazily gathering. In the blink of an eye, it had already formed a vortex. That vortex began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it swallowed all the surrounding black clouds. Looking from below, it was as if a huge black eye had suddenly appeared in the sky. Dark, deep, and vast, Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Taizu was only a remnant consciousness now, and he could actually execute such a remarkable ability. Even a stage 9 warrior might not be able to have such an aura. A trace of doubt quickly flashed across her heart. Did Taizu really fail when he tried to break through back then? However, this thought only flashed across her mind. At this moment, the cloud sky copper sword in her hand suddenly vibrated. Buzz! Chu Liyue looked down. On the cloud sky copper sword, there seemed to be a dark blue flame that quickly streaked across. As time passed, the sword began to vibrate even more violently. It was as if it was being strongly summoned by some kind of power, as if it was about to escape from her hands. Chu Liyue clenched his fists and raised his sword high. Her palms were already starting to go numb. Fortunately, after nearly a month of tempering, her physical strength had increased by a lot. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for her to hold this sword. Rumble! A shocking explosion was heard all of a sudden. She looked up. In the sky, a huge black vortex was spinning slowly, and that sound came from within. Amidst the dense blackness, a silver snake-like bolt of lightning was crazily swimming within. Chu Liyue pursed his lips tightly. The force in his body circulated rapidly, as if it was about to boil. In the next moment, the bolt of lightning struck down from the sky with a shocking aura. It was heading straight for Chu Liyue. Whoosh! That
bolt of lightning seemed to have torn the void apart. Wherever it passed, a black spatial crack was swiftly drawn out. It was as if an invisible hand was forcefully tearing apart this part of the world. Boom! In an instant, that dazzling silver light landed on the cloud sky copper sword. The light was resplendent. Chu Liyue's figure, along with half of Yanlin Peak, was almost instantly enveloped by that dazzling light. Chu Liyue only felt her hands tremble. A terrifying energy instantly flowed from the cloud sky copper sword and into her body. Intense pain instantly spread from her hands to her entire body. All the blood, flesh, tendons, and bones in her body felt as if they were being torn apart at this moment. The smell of something being burned could be heard. Blood blisters even appeared on her skin, charred black and red intertwined. It was a ghastly sight. Chu Liyue clenched her teeth tightly and didn't even cry out in pain. Taizu, who was standing in the sky, frowned. When he saw this scene, he also slowly clenched his fists. You must hold on. Lass. Generally speaking, those who dare to trigger the Tianlei and use their own body as a transition to forge a yuan instrument were true top experts. However, the current Chu Liyue wasn't even a stage 5 warrior. Such an action was actually extremely risky, and the pain that she had to endure was actually far more than others. Whether or not she could endure the first Tianlei would often determine the success or failure of the entire process. As long as she could endure this Tianlei. Suddenly, Taizu's expression changed, and he looked up. In the distance, a youth's figure was rushing over from the direction of Qing Yuan Mountain. It was Chang Wanzhou. Chu Liyue knew 2 days ago that the polishing of the cloud sky copper sword was nearing its end, so she informed Chang Wanzhou in advance that she was going to forge that sword on Yanlin Peak. And at that time, she had repeatedly warned Chang Wanzhou that no matter what happened, he was not to go near Yanlin Peak. After she was done with her task, she would naturally return. Therefore, Chu Liyue had been polishing the sword for a day and a night without sleeping, while Chang Wanzhou on Qing Yuan Mountain stood and watched for a day and a night. Originally, everything was fine, but when he saw the Tianlei descending and directly striking Chu Liyue's body, Chang Wanzhou was shocked and finally couldn't hold back and rushed over. However, Yanlin Peak was already enveloped by the power of the Tianlei. The violent and terrifying power was crazily strangling, and the surrounding trees were all affected and destroyed. It could be said that it was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Chang Wanzhou clenched his fists tightly and quickly mobilized the force in his body. Just as he was about to barge in, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time, a low and deep voice entered his ears. If you don't want to be a burden to her, retreat immediately. Chang Wanzhou frowned and looked up. However, there was a flash of light in front of him, and the wind was blowing wildly. He couldn't see anything, and even the outline of Chu Liyue's figure was very blurry. He was conflicted, and just as he was about to rush forward without caring about anything, the voice sounded again. She is forging the sword for you. Chang Wanzhou took half a step forward and stopped abruptly. A look of shock flashed across his eyes. He had heard Chu Liyue mention this before, but when he saw Chu Liyue being enveloped by the Tianlei, he didn't think of this at all. At this moment, when he heard this sentence, he suddenly realized that the pain and torture that Chu Liyue was going through at this moment was all because of him. Guilt, self-blame, pain. It was as if there was an invisible hand tightly clenching his heart, making him almost unable to breathe. If you come over now, not only will you not be able to help, you will only make her efforts go to waste. Then, all the pain that she's going through will all be in vain. Every word and sentence was like a heavy hammer that smashed into Chang Wanzhou's heart. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Finally, he took a step back. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 622. The power of Tianlei rampaged through Chu Liyue's body, almost tearing her internal organs apart.
She clenched her teeth, and the thick smell of blood filled her mouth. Her face was pale, and large beads of sweat fell from her forehead. At this moment, one didn't need to look to know that her palm had already festered. There were dark red bloodstains that flowed down her wrist. However, she still held the sword hilt tightly and didn't let go. She endured the terrifying pain and forced herself to hold on. She used her last bit of consciousness to circulate the force in her body. Waves of force surged from her limbs and bones, smoothing out the power of Tianlei that was rampaging crazily bit by bit and gathering it in her hands again. Then, she poured this force back into the cloud sky copper sword. A stream of light flashed across the body of the sparrow blue sword. Following the refinement of this power of Tianlei, the color of the sword body became even richer and purer. A faint light gradually appeared on the cloud sky copper sword. It was as if a star had suddenly lit up in the dark and boundless night sky. When Taizu saw this, a look of admiration flashed across his eyes. She did it. Chu Luiwei really did it. She used her physical body to withstand the first power of Tianlei. Boom! Another loud sound reverberated through the clouds. Taizu was shocked and suddenly looked up. He saw that in the dark vortex, the second power of Tianlei was rapidly converging, and it was rapidly descending toward Chu Luiwei. How can it be so fast? Seeing this scene, Taizu was so shocked that he lost his voice. Generally speaking, the amount of heavenly lightning that could be summoned to forge a sword was different depending on the forger and the sword. Whether it was 9 or 81, they were all numbers related to 9. One was 9, one level. He originally thought that with Chu Luiwei's current strength and the rare sparrow feather bronze embryo heart in the cloud sky copper sword, she should be able to summon 18 powers of Tianlei, which was 2 levels. But it definitely shouldn't be this fast. Just as Taizu was filled with shock and confusion, the second Tianlei had arrived. It landed heavily on Chu Luiwei's body. The dazzling light once again enveloped the surroundings. Among them, a slender and exquisite figure stood proudly like a pine tree. Taizu stared blankly at this scene and murmured in a low voice, "That's right. This is going to be a big deal." Square Ravine. The Great Set Conference was in full swing. After a series of matches, the Chongshu Pavilion and the 9-Star Alliance both had their wins and losses. Most of the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion were celestial physician, so they were basically guaranteed to win the competition. However, in terms of martial artists, the 9-Star Alliance was clearly superior. As for the Xian Masters, both sides' disciples' standards were about the same. Therefore, after the comparison, there is actually no difference between the points of the two sides. The match between the two sides became a tug of war. On the other hand, the matches between the other sects were basically one-sided. To be able to occupy the position of the 4 major sects for so many years was enough to prove the strength of the Dragon Teeth Mountain and the other sections. It was extremely difficult to challenge them. It seemed that only the 9-Star Alliance had a chance of winning against the Chongshu Pavilion. On the arena, the matches continued. Zhang Hua and the others stood at the side and watched coldly. An old man came to Zhang Hua's side and whispered, "Alliance Master, we're almost tied with the Chongshu Pavilion now. Do you think, when should we send those people up?" Zhang Hua sneered. "What's the hurry? There are only so many people in the Chongshu Pavilion. We can tell at a glance how strong they are. They seem to be barely holding on now, but in fact, they've been going all out from the beginning. In the second half of the match, they will definitely be unable to continue. When the time comes, we'll make a move and completely crush them. Let the Chongshu Pavilion think that they still have hope first, and then we'll give them a head-on blow at the end. Only then would they be able to win happily." When the old man heard this, his face was filled with excitement. Alliance Master is wise. The more badly the Chongshu Pavilion lost in the end, the harder it would be for them to make a comeback in the future. Zhang Hua placed his hands behind his back, his expression cold and mocking. After today, there will be no place for the Chongshu Pavilion in Shilin City. Yinlin Peak. Dark clouds covered the sky and covered the sun. The huge black vortex in the middle was spinning slowly. Below it, light flickered on Yinlin Peak, and violent energy spread wildly in all directions. More than half of the forest on the mountain had been destroyed, and it looked terrifying. And in the middle of that ball of light, Chu Luiwei was enduring intense pain and torture. She gathered the power of Tianlei again and poured it into the cloud sky copper sword. After the first successful experience, it was easier to do it again. But this didn't mean that her pain had lessened. On the contrary, every layer of torture on her body was stacking with the descent of Tianlei. Before the old injuries healed, new ones were added. There was almost no part of Chu Liuyue's body that was unscathed. Burn scars were all over her body. Not to mention the internal injuries caused by the violent energy of the heavenly Tao rampaging through his body. Her hands and arms were already bleeding from the inside out. These wounds didn't look big, but they were extremely deep and densely packed. They looked extremely terrifying. Her clothes were already soaked in blood, and even the sword hilt was stained with her blood. But she still held the cloud sky copper sword tightly, and she kept pouring the power of Tianlei into it. Another streak of silver light streaked across the sky. It was refined again. Gradually, more and more stars appeared on the dull and pure sword body, and it became brighter and brighter. The aura around her was also strengthening continuously. Chu Luiwei licked her lips, and the sweet and fishy smell filled her nose, but it made her battle intent even stronger. She looked up. The third Tianlei had already gathered in that extremely dark vortex. Again, she let out a clear shout. At the same time, she raised the cloud sky copper sword in her hand even higher. Taizu, who was standing not far away, only felt that his heart was being clenched tightly. If he had one. Is this girl crazy? Two Tianlei came down, and she was already seriously injured, but not only was she not afraid, she even seemed to be more excited. Is she not afraid of pain or death? Such a scene made him tremble with fear, and what he was most worried about was that this was just the beginning, according to the speed at which the Tianlei was falling. Chu Liwei still had a long way to go. Just at this moment, as if it had heard her voice, the third Tianlei came down rapidly. Boom! Chu Yue's figure was swallowed by endless power again. If she knew what Taizu was thinking at this moment, she would tell him. Chu Luiwei was not afraid of pain, and she was not afraid of death. Today, this cloud sky copper sword, she was going to forge it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 623. The force in Chu Liuyue's body and the force of Tianlei fought fiercely and tore each other apart. Every inch of her flesh and bones was being tempered again and again. Along with the unforgettable pain, her physical body's endurance was also gradually increasing. As if she couldn't feel the pain, she stood there with her back straight and received the descending Tianlei. The third Tianlei, the fourth Tianlei, the fifth Tianlei, the ninth Tianlei. On the cloud sky copper sword, there were specks of starlight, almost like a galaxy in the night sky. It was dazzling. Pure and clean sparrow blue flames burned quietly on it, almost fusing with the sword. The flames were scorching hot, and the stars were cold. The two extreme forces intertwined with each other, forming an astonishing pressure. A bright, lightning-like pattern appeared on the sword hilt. Little girl, this rune contains the power of 9 bolts of heavenly thunder. Taizu's voice could not hide his excitement. Although he was very confident in Chu Luiwei before, he was still pleasantly surprised when he saw this scene. He had not misjudged her. Chu Luiwei had unimaginable perseverance and endurance. With such a temperament, coupled with her astonishing talent and mysterious trump card, her future was limitless. When Chu Luiwei heard that, the corners of her mouth slowly curled into a gratified smile. The torture that she had experienced previously seemed to have become insignificant at this moment. As long as she could succeed, boom. Another loud sound reverberated in his ears. Chu Luiwei looked up in shock, only to see that the dark clouds in the sky had not dissipated. And in the black vortex, another Tianlei had appeared. What? What is that? Chu Luiwei widened her eyes slightly. Taizu coughed. Oh, that? The 10th Tianlei. Chu Luiwei. Didn't you say that there were 9? Ahem, girl, what I said before was at least 9. Chu Luiwei was stunned and thought carefully. It seems, it really is. She had just survived the 9 Tianlei and was so excited that she had forgotten about it. Looking at the silver lightning that was obviously much thicker than before, Chu Luiwei felt his throat go dry. Taizu, does this mean that I still have to endure 9 more Tianlei? Taizu put his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky, trying not to let Chu Luiwei see the guilt on his face. Ah, this should be. The corners of Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt that there was something wrong with Taizu, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Before she could think too much, the 10th Tianlei had already descended. Chu Luiwei spread his legs apart and bent his knees slightly as he gripped the cloud sky copper sword in his hands tightly. The next moment, a dazzling light instantly obscured her vision. A power that was even more violent than the previous 9 Tianlei spread down along the cloud sky copper sword and entered her body in an instant. Countless bloody wounds instantly appeared on Chu Luiwei's body. Blood splattered everywhere. In an instant, she was completely covered in blood. This time, she finally couldn't hold it in and let out a short and suppressed groan. When Taizu heard that, he was worried and hurriedly looked over. When he saw Chu Luiwei covered in blood and injuries, his expression instantly froze. After passing the previous 9 Tianlei, the power of the 10th Tianlei was indeed much stronger than before. Girl, for some reason, when he saw Chu Luiwei in such a state, he felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if there was something heavy pressing on his heart, or as if there were dense needles constantly stabbing him. He couldn't explain where this feeling came from, but it went deep into his bones and couldn't be shaken off. For a moment, he actually hoped that he could take Chu Luiwei's place and bear this pain. Taizu closed his eyes and frowned. He knew very well what would happen if he triggered the Tianlei to forge the sword. After all, the Long Yuan sword was personally forged by him. Therefore, he had already expected this scene, especially when he sensed that the speed of the 2nd Tianlei had far exceeded his previous estimation. He was even more clear about how things would develop. According to his understanding of Chu Luiwei, she could actually survive this round. However, when this scene appeared before his eyes, he realized that he couldn't bear to see Chu Luiwei suffer this torture. He suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and controlled himself to stand on the spot and not make a move. Once he made a move, it would mean that this process would be interrupted. Just like what he had said to Chang Wanzhou before, Chu Luiwei's efforts would all be in vain, and the torture she suffered would be meaningless. Taizu fell in a deep thought as he watched. He had been decisive all his life, and it was rare for him to feel such heartache. Could it be that it was because he had spent a lot of time with Chu Luiwei during this period of time that he felt this way? Or could it be because of the Long Yuan sword? Actually, he had already had this feeling before. There seemed to be a subtle connection and familiarity between Chu Luiwei and him. This was also one of the reasons why he was especially close to Chu Luiwei. At first, he thought that the Long Yuan sword had recognized Chu Luiwei as its new master. But now it seemed that wasn't the case. On the other side, Chang Wanzhou was also looking over. When the light flowed back and forth, he finally caught a glimpse of Chu Luiwei's figure. His pupils suddenly constricted. Chu Luiwei's body was covered in wounds. It was a shocking sight. Because she was wearing red clothes, it was not easy to see the bloodstains. But at this moment, the clothes on her body were almost sticking tightly to her body, and blood kept dripping from the corner of her clothes. It was not hard to imagine how much blood she had lost. Chang Wanzhou's chest rose and fell violently, and the blood in his body was almost frozen. However, his force was surging wildly. His beautiful eyes were already scarlet red. Even he himself did not know what kind of strength he was relying on to restrain his impulse to rush forward. A sentence kept echoing in his mind. She did all this and experienced all this for him. Bang! Vaguely, somewhere deep in his body, something seemed to have suddenly shattered. At this moment, Chu Luwen naturally did not know about the situation between Taizu and Chang Wanzhou. In her eyes and heart, there was only the cloud sky copper sword in her hand. She kept organizing and gathering the power of the 10th Tianlei in her body, and continued to temper the sword in her hand. The flames on the sword burned even more fiercely, and those stars seemed to be even brighter. The 10th Tianlei. She had finally succeeded in enduring it. Then it was the 11th Tianlei. Boom! An extremely ferocious power suddenly descended. Chu Liyue's body finally could not hold on any longer, and she knelt down with a plop. Her knees smashed heavily on the star stone, and there was a dull thud. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.